Hey guys, welcome to Green Bean Fiction. So in today's video we are gonna see, what if Deku had Omnitrix and had massive harem? Part 23. This story is Dekiru 10 by phantomdanger. Before starting, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe the channel if you are new so you won't miss our latest videos. Four Arms cracked his massive knuckles, rolling his shoulders as flames licked the air around him. The ground beneath his feet steamed from the heat, and the scorpion-like Nomu in front of him crouched, hissing. Wait, isn't that Four Arms? That's Izuku Midoriya's form, right? A woman asked. A man beside her squinted at the field. What's Dekiru 10 doing here? I thought he was still a student. The Nomu let out a shriek and crouched low. With a violent crack, it launched itself forward, the ground beneath it shattering under the force of its leap. Four Arms didn't flinch, his red fists clenched just in time. He pivoted, wound back, and bomb! His punch connected square with the Nomu's face, slamming it into the asphalt with a thunderous impact. The shockwaves sent dust and debris exploding outward, forcing nearby onlookers to shield their eyes. Holy shit! Someone shouted from behind the phone camera as the dust began to clear. The scene came back into focus. Four Arms, unmoved, foot planted firmly on the back of the squirming Nomu's head as it writhed beneath him. He cracked his knuckles. Oh, so that bastard's sending you rejects after me now. Dekiru 10, look out, a civilian's voice shouted. Four Arms' brow lifted slightly, just as a monstrous shadow blocked out the sun above him. Another Nomu larger, broader came crashing down from above. Four arms of its own, each bulging. Four Arms barely had time to widen his eyes before the creature brought all four fists down at once. KKRAAAASH. The street shattered, pavement folding like paper under the impact. Four Arms were driven into the ground with such force that the entire upper level gave way, crumbling and collapsing as both figures plummeted through the debris. Boom! They smashed through to the lower street traffic as people were screaming in their cars as the two heavyweights crashed into the asphalt, leaving a crater wide enough to swallow a bus. Cars skidded to violent halts, tires screaming as a thick dust cloud engulfed the street. Drivers shouted in confusion, horns blaring. What the hell is going on? I'm gonna be late to my date. RAAAAH. The scorpion Nomu came flying through the haze, smashing into a parked van and plowing through traffic. Cars crunched like soda cans while other vehicles flipped on the backside as civilians screamed and scrambled for safety. Is that the same thing from Hosu? And Four Arms? My car! Someone shrieked, staring at a clean, torn hole in their hood. Bam! All heads turned as Four Arms erupted from the dust, hurling a devastating haymaker at the beast, only for the Nomu's head to snap sideways and then roll back like nothing happened. Four Arms' expression tightened. TCH, tough guy, huh? He muttered and then unleashed hell. Bam! Boom! Crack! Fists flew in a flurry, and each hit shook the asphalt beneath their feet, creating shockwaves that knocked nearby cars sideways and blew off guardrails. Horns continued blaring as stunned civilians watched from the lower road below, some filming through trembling hands. Four Arms backed off, chest heaving. His glowing green eyes flickered for a split second then flashed pink. He scanned the Nomu up and down. Shock absorption, he muttered. Of course, it's shock absorption. Before he could regroup, the Nomu lunged. It threw a punch and Four Arms caught it mid-swing. Another arm came, and he blocked the two. Then another. Then the last. Now Four Arms was gripping all four limbs of the monster, muscles straining, biceps flexing under pressure. You stubborn freak. Whoosh. The scorpion Nomu blurred into view behind him, its jagged, segmented tail coiled back before driving forward with blinding speed. SHHHNank. Its tail pierced clean through Four Arms' side, stabbing out the other end with a spray of blood. Gra-og, he roared, body arching as the blade twisted viciously. Civilians screamed, pointing up at the barely visible shapes battling above. You wanna go? You wanna go? Fine, let's fucking go, you freaks. Four Arms roared, voice shaking with fury and pain. You sorry excuse for chickens, bastards. RRAARGH. His body suddenly began to shift, the ground beneath him trembling as his muscles convulsed, his back arching violently. Two of his arms snapped back into his torso with a sickening crunch. Black, charcoal-like lines split across his skin, glowing with heat. The temperature spiked. Boom! An explosion of emerald fire burst from his body, a shockwave tearing outward in all directions. A nearby food truck was ripped from the pavement and flung into a building. Cars were flung like toys. Civilians screamed as the blast tore through the surrounding area as bystanders caught too close were hurled through the air, their clothes singed and skin scorched from the sudden inferno. A city bus slammed into the guardrail, its front half hanging dangerously over the edge of the elevated highway. Screams tore through the air as the flames burned white-hot, melting street signs, warping asphalt, and vaporizing anything too close. Smoke belched skyward, thick and black, as a gaping hole melted into the center of the road. From within it, emerging like a phoenix from a flames, was Heatblast. Heatblast hand launched as he gripped the four-armed Nomu by the neck. The creature thrashed, as Heatblast's hands scorched into its flesh. Without hesitation, Heatblast launched into the sky like a meteor, streaking green across the cityscape, leaving a burning arc in his wake. The Nomu didn't even have time to scream before they vanished into the clouds. New footage picked up moments later a shaky news chopper following the green trail of flame across the sky, tracking it desperately. Somewhere else, middle school, students and staff stared in horror as the sky split open with a crash. The Nomu was hurled from the sky, its body spinning violently as it tore through the school's roof like a wrecking ball. A science lab on the second floor was obliterated as the Nomu tore through desks, lockers, and walls, dragging sparks and debris with it. Then it plowed through the gymnasium, sending equipment flying. The beast smashed out the other side with a crash. The Nomu struck a middle school soccer field, tearing through both goalposts and creating a crater that split the turf wide open. The beast tumbled through dirt and rubble before skidding to a fiery stop near the bleachers, which collapsed from the impact. Heatblast landed hard on the opposite side of the Nomu, his molten feet singeing the grass underfoot. He looked down at his side where the scorpion Nomu's tail had stabbed through him. The wound, once gaping, was now stitching closed, threads of radiant green flame knitting his flesh together. His body smoked as the healing completed. He exhaled, eyes still glowing with rage, and muttered, "That's better." Children peeked out from behind walls and benches, phones trembling in their hands as they recorded the flaming figure at the center of the crater. Teachers shouted frantically, trying to herd them toward safety. "Get away from the windows. Get back inside now." Panic grew louder as teachers ushered students away, shielding them as best they could. Children ducked their heads and sprinted, some sobbing, some still peeking back through the smoke. Heatblast barely seemed to notice. "So, he sent a knockoff to take me out." Heatblast growled, his voice laced with disgust. "Too much of a coward to show up himself." The Nomu snarled, its four fists pounding into the turf. He grinned, "Guess all might beat the balls off him. Now he hides behind you bitch-made fucks." The Nomu shrieked. Everyone on campus covered their ears, several kids crying out in pain. Heatblast didn't flinch. He just cracked his knuckles, and started walking slowly, almost lazily toward the snarling creature. Yeah, I've heard scarier noises from broken vending machines," he muttered, rolling his shoulders. "If he wants me dead this bad, he should have come himself." He raised his hand, gathering flame in his palm. "Sending you roaches isn't gonna cut it." Screeg. The sound hit again, but this time, from behind. Everyone froze, civilians, children, teachers, even Heatblast, when the air tore open. A violet rift shimmered violently into existence near the goalpost. A second opened near the scorched bleachers. Then another, and another, until 8 total swirled open across the field like wounds in reality. Out of each portal, clawed hands and black talons scraped the ground, dragging out hulking and exposed brain monstrosities, all shaped and built differently, but all unmistakably Nomus. One by one, 8 hulking Nomus ripped themselves out of the portals, slamming into the field with enough force to crater the earth beneath their feet. Each one snarled, breathing in sync, their chests heaving like animals ready to pounce. Before a condescending voice cracked through, one that Heatblast recognized. "They're still incomplete, of course," came the disembodied voice, echoing from nowhere. "But since you've grown so bold, Izuku Midoriya, why not let my little experiments stretch their legs?" The flames on his head spike violently scorched the ground. His face twisted into something near deranged. A grin that looked wrong even on an alien. All. 4. 1. Before the last vortex sealed, Heatblast found himself surrounded 8 Nomu, each different in size and shape, all of them snarling like rabid dogs growling around him like a chorus of hellhounds. Heatblast rolled his shoulders, as he conjured 2 blazing spheres, gripping them like cannonballs. So the big man's not even gonna give me the courtesy of another threat. He muttered. What? Too scared to talk now. A Nomu blurred forward, faster than most would expect for its size. Heatblast grinned. First fried fuck coming up. He hurled a massive plume of flame forward, engulfing the oncoming creature. But FWOOOOOSH. From the Nomu's body, a high-pressure jet of water blasted from a vent, extinguishing the flame mid-flight. The water kept coming in a powerful torrent like tsunami, catching Heatblast off guard and washing him across the field like a ragdoll. Crash! The torrent of water plowed through the side of the school, bouncing off a chalkboard. Steam hissed off his body as he groaned and pushed himself upright. A line of destruction carved through the entire wing, a scar running along where lay soaked and where he stood. He dropped to one knee, coughing as steam hissed from his body. His flames sputtered erratically, flickering and struggling to reignite. HHH, cough you, son of a. He growled and tried to hurl another fireball, only for a massive water whip to lash through the wall like a serpent, smashing him through desks, chairs and walls like a skipping stone. Crash, smash, he skidded through 3 classrooms before tumbling into a hallway. Boom, boom, boom. The ground shook. Heatblast looked and then crash. A 4-armed Nomu tore through the corridor like a freight train, smashing through everything in its path. It spotted Heatblast, bellowed like a mutant gorilla, and raised all 4 fists overhead. Heatblast tried to roll. Bomb. It was too late as he brought all 4 fists down like sledgehammers. Heatblast was driven into the floor, smoshing through level after level until he finally crashed deep into the boiler room below the school. Dazed, Heatblast groaned until he heard the hiss. The water Nomu dropped down the hole after him, but Heatblast managed to blast himself sideways, avoiding the crushing blow. The creature landed with a grotesque crack. The creature twitched unnaturally, head tilting back and forth like a demented bird. Pop! Heatblast froze and turned his head, eyes locked on the massive boiler tank. Pop, pop, pop. Bolts began to shoot off one by one. The tank's surface was turning red hot under the pressure. Steam hissed out from vents. Oh shit. Boom. The tank erupted, a deafening explosion of steam and pressurized water that should have blasted outward. Instead, the torrent curved. Heatblast barely managed to grunt before the wave coiled and hurled him upward like a torpedo straight through the subfloor and into the upper levels. He tore through the building like a missile, punching through walls and classroom desks and chalkboard. SHHHHRRRAAAKKK. With a final, brutal twist, the water erupted from the field outside, blasting Heatblast up as grass and dirt were thrown sky high. Heatblast's body was spat from the earth in front of the whole city, flung violently across the torn-up school field and into a charred goalpost. His body skipped once, twice, before slamming into the turf and skidding to a halt. Heatblast groaned, steam hissing off his back as he pushed himself up on shaking arms. The Nomu pack slowly circled him, snarling like rabid hunting dogs waiting for the kill. From nowhere, a smug voice. Impressed by my new children, Izuku Midoriya. All for one asked, his tone one of joy. They're still rough around the edges, of course, but I do like to test early. Heatblast's glare flared as his body began to shift, flames extinguishing as brilliant crystal shards erupted over his frame, replacing flesh with shimmering diamond as within a second Diamondhead stood before the Nomus. Before he could even brace himself, one of the Nomu, a tall, skeletal one, rushed forward and unhinged its lower jaw, revealing a speaker-like throat. Fru! A sonic scream ripped through the air like a bomb, shrill and distorted like a dying animal. The shockwave slammed into Diamondhead like a freight train, flinging him across the schoolyard like a leaf in a hurricane. The blast carved through the tennis courts, ripping up bleachers of the ground, shattering windows, and flattening an entire corner of the field as Diamondhead body slammed into a fence. He barely got up before a blur came at him, the 4-armed Nomu, its heavy fist swinging wide. Crack! Diamondhead's body was flung like a skipping stone through the air, slamming spine first into a metal bridge, the structure bending from the impact. He groaned as he looked down at his body. Cracks spider webbed across his crystal body, as he groaned. Fuck. Still functional. Remarkable. All for one mused, curiosity laced with cruel amusement. I admit, they're far from perfect. But I'm quite enjoying this trial run. Lying amid the wreckage, Diamondhead heaved and looked up as the Nomu began to advance again. His eyes turned pink as his pupils shrunk as his gaze swept across them. Oh fuck. Diamondhead's expression twisted as he slammed his crystal palm to the ground. KRKR crack. Dozens of diamond spikes burst from the earth, skewering one of the Nomu, a bloated, tank-like brute as it roared in pain, flailing against the impalement. All for one's voice faltered. Just slightly. How did you? Before Diamondhead transformed again, replaced by fast track before he rushed down the street. A sonic boom exploded behind him as he vanished in a streak of blue racing out of the Nomu's perimeter like a comet breaking orbit. The screen cut to black. Back at Heights Alliance, Izuku Midoriya could only stare, his stomach sinking, his heartbeat pounding in his ears. Izuku could only stare at the blank screen, jaw slightly slack, heart pounding in his ears. Around him, voices finally began to stir. It's been all over the news, man. Kaminari said, gesturing toward the darkened screen. You seriously took on, like, 8 Nomus by yourself. Yeah, what the hell, dude? Mineta added, eyes wide. Were you trying to get killed? Kamakiri crossed his arms, eyes narrowing. Was it the League of Villains? From USJ, Midoriya did nuke the monster that was supposed to kill All Might. They've gotta want payback. Ida's hand was on his chin, eyebrows furrowed. It is suspicious. Midoriya, if this is retaliation, we need to report. No wait guys. Izuku finally blurted out, spinning around with urgency. That wasn't me. Some students blinked. Others glanced at one another. Abara stepped forward calmly. Abara quickly stepped beside him, nodding with conviction. It's true. Izuku and I were together all day. He couldn't have gone across the city without me noticing. Ochako's brows furrowed. Wait, but you told me you were going to your mom's. Izuku winced. A few girls, Mina, Momo, and Itsuka especially, looked a bit hurt or confused. Guilt hit him like a gut punch, his eyes briefly meeting Momo's, then Itsuka's, both of whom quickly looked away. Yeah, Izuku admitted, shrinking slightly. That was a lie. I didn't go home, but I didn't fight Nomu either. I swear, I wouldn't even have a reason to. Manoma chose that moment to step forward, all smug. He tapped his tablet dramatically and raised his voice like he was performing for an audience. Well, he said with a smug little bow, if I may, ladies, gentlemen, future heroes, let's consider the evidence. He pointed dramatically at the paused screen. 8 Nomus, 1 hero, 1 very specific transformation, 4 arms, then Heatblast, then Diamondhead, then Fast Track. All unique forms of one person. He spun to face Izuku, arms wide. And who here just so happens to have a magic alien transformation watch and all those forms? Because if this wasn't you, then you've got a very dedicated doppelganger. Silence. Manoma grinned wider. Exhibit A. He clicked the remote. Several headlines flashed across the screen. Dekiru 10 saves hundreds of kids from orphanage. Dekiru 10 uncovers secret network using children declared dead across Japan. Children thought dead found alive rescued by Japan's rising hero. Manoma spun dramatically on his heel, gesturing to the group like he was making a closing argument in court. Now, I know Dekiru 10 is the picture of humility, but come on, does any of this really sound out of reach for him? Let's not forget, he raised a finger, eyes glinting. He rescued 2 aliens, one of them was being tortured by some lunatic in medieval armor. How do you even know about that? Manoma smirked even wider. Oh, Hagakure and Ashido were chatting about it in the common room. I just happened to be in earshot. Izuku turned toward the 2 girls, Ashido whistling as she glanced away, and Hagakure audibly gulped. What? We didn't tell anyone. We were just reminiscing. Manoma gave a faux gasp. Oh, but wait, there's more. He turned again. What about that giant alien dragon thing you just happened to help escape? The one locked in that Forever Night Freak basement, mind you. That street still has a crater the size of a city bus. He spun on his heel with theatrical grace, finger pointed now directly at Izuku. And let's not pretend we forgot Dr. Onimo. Before you even set foot in UA, you were already fighting that maniac and his genetically mutated bird monster as Stinkfly, no less. That air battle, still viral online. I rewatched it last night, actually. Stunning performance. Yeah, Ojiro muttered under his breath, you've kinda always gone out of your way to help people. Even if it breaks a rule or two. That's who you are, Midoriya, Mina added quietly. Saving kids from some awful place. Even I kinda thought it was you. That still doesn't explain how someone has my forms, Izuku said, trying to hold himself together. That's not me, I wasn't even there. Cut the crap, nerd. Bakugo leaned against the railing of the staircase, arms crossed, scowl deep. We saw you on the news. You can't fake the watch. You can't fake those forms. Either you're lying again, or you're losing it. Izuku turned toward him, jaw tightening. I'm not. You already lied once about that stupid watch of yours, Bakugo growled, stepping forward. Now you expect everyone to believe you when the footage shows you clear as day. Bakugo, save it. I don't care what act you're playing. He shoved past him, muttering, still the same damn liar. He pushed off the railing and walked toward the door. Just don't expect us to clean up your mess when the pros come asking. Slam. Izuku sighed before turning to the screen. That isn't me, he said, voice low and firm, glaring at the flickering image of his doppelganger. A few minutes later, click, scroll, tap, click. Izuku's fingers danced feverishly over the keyboard, eyes darting across forums, news articles, anything he could find. He was seated in front of the monitor in the lounge, surrounded by a semicircle of Class A and B girls who'd lingered out of curiosity or concern. Do you really think you'll find something? Ochako asked softly from beside him. I mean, if this person's pretending to be you, they're not exactly leaving a calling card. Yui said. I have to try, Izuku replied, rubbing his temple. There's gotta be a clue somewhere, someone has to have noticed something off. The girls from both Class A and B hovered nearby, curiosity outweighing their earlier doubts. Shroom, she said, hesitantly. But, what if you're just chasing yourself? I mean, you are probably just going to find more conspiracy theories about you, Jiro added with a shrug, one earphone dangling from her lobe as she poked a finger at a floating headline. Hashtag Dekiru shits fire. Izuku groaned and leaned back in the chair, cracking his knuckles before clicking through another forum thread. It's all rumors about how my quirk works, the other half think I'm secretly dating Maruko. Are you? Mina teased with a cheeky grin. No, he yelped, slamming the desk as his face turned bright red. Focus. Momo stepped up, scanning one of the videos thoughtfully. Have you tried analyzing timestamps and security feeds from the orphanage incident? If there's overlap with when you were accounted for elsewhere, that could at least prove it wasn't you. Yanagi said as she pointed at the screen. Even if you find a timestamp, people won't believe it. Todoroki tilted his head slightly. Why not? If he has an alibi. They'll say he was in two places at once, Yanagi murmured. Midoriya moves faster than sound. Faster than All Might in his prime. Over Mach 10. She turned to him. You could have gone halfway across Japan and back in under a minute. People will assume that's within your range. Iida nodded grimly. Regrettably, she's correct. Given Midoriya's current feats, disproving this will require more than just conflicting locations. Izuku groaned again and buried his face in his hands. Just then, Setsuna casually dropped into a sitting position on his desk, blocking the monitor and his view. She leaned in with a wide grin. Ah, don't get your hero panties in a twist, Green Bean, she said, resting her chin on her hand. Look, do I still think it's you? Totally. Quote, she swung one leg playfully. Boot, I'll play along with your mysterious doppelganger act for now. Either way, that guy saved a crap ton of kids and bodied the league like they were soggy rotisserie chickens. Kind of a win, no? Izuku looked up at her, flustered. I guess, but I didn't do any of that. Then relax, Setsuna said with a wink. If it's not you, we'll figure it out. And if it is you, well, she shrugged. Izuku nodded. I guess. Midoriya, the cops are here. Mineta and Kaminari shrieked in perfect unison from the hallway, practically tripping over themselves as they bolted into the common room. The room froze. For a heartbeat, no one moved. No one spoke. Izuku blinked. Ah, everyone scattered like startled pigeons, running into chairs, grabbing bags, diving behind sofas. A lamp went flying. Izuku bolted to the window, yanking the curtain aside only to see Tsukauchi standing outside the dorm gates, flanked by two serious-looking officers, and All Might. But it wasn't the All Might he knew. The former symbol of peace looked pale, hunched. There was no smile, no charisma, only raw, visible panic in his sunken eyes and tightly clenched jaw. A few minutes later, the class had gathered downstairs in awkward silence, the air tense. Most of the girls had filed out first, clearly worried but trying to stay calm. All Might was already speaking to them, voice strained and hoarse. "We'll find him," he said with uncharacteristic fragility. "I promise you. Young Midoriya is strong, but if he's in danger, we'll get him back whatever it takes." His voice cracked slightly like a father trying to stay brave for the sake of his kids. "I've already mobilized every contact I have," Tsukauchi added beside him, his tone all business, but his eyes betrayed how serious this was. "But we need every lead. Anything he might have said, somewhere he could have gone. A place to lie low, maybe something he mentioned recently." A few exchanged quiet glances, unsure of what they were supposed to do, eyes flicking between Izuku and the two men who thought he was missing. All Might stared at Izuku like he'd just come back from the grave. Then, in the blink of an eye, he rushed forward and pulled him into a tight, desperate hug, his arms trembling. "Young Midoriya," he cried, voice cracking with overwhelming relief. "Thank the stars. We thought." Izuku wheezed. All Might can't breathe." "Oh." All Might quickly released him, blinking as if realizing only now that the boy was solid, real, and completely unharmed. He took a step back, his eyes scanning Izuku from head to toe. You're fine. You're completely fine. Did you go see Recovery Girl already?" Izuku coughed into his fist, trying to catch his breath. "No, I didn't need to. I've been here, the whole time." All Might's brows furrowed in confusion, relief still in his voice, but now tinged with doubt. Tsukauchi cleared his throat. "Maybe we should take this somewhere more private," he suggested, glancing around. More than a few students were watching now, whispering behind hands or blinking in disbelief at the emotional outburst. All Might blinked, realizing just how many people had seen that. "Ah, right, yes, ahem." He straightened his back, trying to put on the symbol of peace mask, but it didn't quite settle into place. "I'm just very happy you're safe, young Midoriya." He gave a forced thumbs up that didn't quite reach his eyes. The class looked from All Might to Izuku, several of them still blinking in surprise. Mina whispered something to Jiro, who just muttered, "Weird." "Cool," Kaminari muttered under his breath. "Why yeah, let's go," All Might said quickly, brushing a hand through his hair as he moved behind Izuku and Tsukauchi. "We'll just have a quick talk. Nothing major." Right then, All Might suddenly reached out, grabbed Izuku by the shoulder with one hand and Tsukauchi by the collar with the other. "Hold on tight." "Wait, what?" Tsukauchi blinked. "All Might, don't." Whoosh. In an instant, the three of them vanished. "You didn't have to hug the kid," Tsukauchi muttered as he adjusted his tie, brushing a hand through his disheveled hair. Izuku tried and failed to fix his hair, still puffed from All Might's desperate escape. All Might, looking sheepish, gave a quick bow. "My apologies. I may have let my emotions get the better of me," he said. "But can we move on to more pressing matters?" Tsukauchi gave a stiff nod and turned back to the green-haired. "Midoriya, how did you find those bases?" Izuku blinked, confused. You dismantled 4 of All for One's old networks in under 48 hours. Multiple eyewitnesses. You raided 1 of All for One's child trafficking fronts in Kanagawa, then 2 orphanage facilities connected to his shell charities. Another base went up in smoke just outside of Musudafu this morning." "It wasn't me," Izuku groaned, leaning forward and gripping his hair. "How many times do I have to say that? I didn't even know about any of those places." All Might's eyes narrowed slightly. "Young Midoriya, are you absolutely sure?" "He's telling the truth," Tsukauchi interrupted, his voice quieter now but tinged with disbelief. He stared at Izuku like he was trying to figure out how this even made sense. All Might turned to his old friend. You're certain? Tsukauchi hesitated for only a beat. My quirk hasn't failed me yet. He believes every word he's saying. Izuku's expression shifted from frustration to stunned relief. You believe me? I have to, Tsukauchi said, still looking stunned. My quirk doesn't lie, and right now, neither are you. All Might deflated into his true form with a sigh-like air escaping a punctured tire. So, the orphanage rescue, the Nomu battle, the compound raids, that wasn't you. No, Izuku half yelled, throwing his hands in the air. I was with Abara all day. We went go-kart racing, then we got ice cream, ran into her pastor long story and spent the rest of the day at a cafe with cupcakes and tea. That's it. That's my alibi. You went on a date with Shiozaki. Oh, good for you. Wait, not the point. All Might snapped, shaking his head and trying to refocus. No, Izuku shouted, his voice cracking. Why would I risk everything without a license? I'm not stupid. Tsukauchi's frown deepened as he folded his arms. Then that raises a far worse problem. All Might looked up slowly. Tsukauchi turned toward Izuku, gaze serious. Whoever this person is, they have access to your powers. And know your powers are something not anyone could replicate. And they're out there acting as you. Vigilante work on national broadcasts. Civilian lives involved with a lot of them being hurt. Izuku gulped. Right now, the public and the commission thinks it is you. Izuku's stomach dropped. If we don't find whoever this is and fast, you might lose more than your license, Midoriya, Tsukauchi said grimly. You could lose your future as a hero. On a rooftop high above the city, the sharp whir of buzzing wings sliced through the air as Stinkfly touched down, his clawed feet clacking against the concrete. TCH. That old man's more of a pest than I thought. And those freaks he sends after me. Nomus. Huh, he muttered, his voice low and full of disdain. His four eyes glowed a deep, venomous purple as he scanned the skyline. He always did like playing God. Stinkfly muttered darkly, but if I'm gonna rip him off that throne. A crooked grin spread across his face. Then I'm gonna need a whole lot more firepower. More quirks. A hell of a lot more. Next day, Izuku sat in the bus headed toward the USJ, head leaning against the window, arms crossed tightly. Toru sat beside him, legs swinging idly, while Mina lounged on his other side, chin resting on her palm. Still brooding over your mysterious twin? Toru asked, a teasing lilt in her voice. You've been zoning out since homeroom, Dekiru. Ah, Mina cooed, leaning in with mock concern. As Dekiru 10 feeling a teeny bit salty that someone out there stealing the spotlight. Izuku let out a frustrated groan, rubbing his temples. I'm not jealous, it's just. He looked down at the Omnitrix, the green glow faint beneath his sleeve. I need to know who he is. Everyone keeps mistaking me for him and it's making things complicated. He's out there running around, doing God knows what, and it's all coming back on me. Toru tilted her head. Technically, your evil twin is doing hero stuff, just, illegal. Yeah, Mina added with a shrug. Public opinion's actually kinda obsessed with him. Vigilante Dekiru is trending like crazy. Izuku groaned louder, slumping back into the seat. That doesn't make it better. Toru gave a faint smile, her gloved hands resting casually in her lap. Look, Nezu and the pros are probably already on top of this. You stressing about it won't change anything. It's not like you can sneak off and investigate the guy yourself. Mina nodded firmly beside him. Exactly, so do yourself a favor, Midori, relax a little. You'll give yourself wrinkles before graduation. Izuku let out a breath through his nose, still clearly tense, but gave them both a small nod. He slumped slightly into the seat as if trying to relax, but his fingers kept tapping against his leg, nervous, jittery. Both girls noticed. They glanced at each other briefly. Mina's eyes softened, her cheeks darkened into a pale lavender hue, and she looked away quickly, coughing into her fist as though covering something up. Her hand inched closer toward Izuku's on the seat, brushing his pinky lightly. Her fingertips brushed against the back of his hand. Izuku flinched slightly, heart leaping into his throat the moment he felt it. His head snapped slightly to the side, but Mina was looking out the window, acting completely normal. Maybe it was just accidental. He didn't want to make it weird. Then, on his other side, He felt the light press of fabric, the soft tap of Toru's gloved fingers against his knuckles, just a little touch, featherlight, before withdrawing, then returning, this time tapping playfully like she was drawing invisible patterns on his skin. He gulped, trying to keep still, pretending to look at the window, but both girls' fingers were still there, just barely brushing him, like testing the water. Mina's pinky gently tapped against his knuckle once, then twice, then slid into the edge of his seat, her fingers shyly brushing over his again. Meanwhile, Toru's middle and index fingers began a playful little rhythm, stepping softly over the back of his hand like they were walking. Izuku's face was glowing red now. His heart felt like it was punching his ribs. Toru, Mina, he stammered, barely able to look at either of them. What are you guys doing? Mina blinked at him, feigning complete innocence. Doing what? She asked without turning her head. Yeah, same, Toru chimed sweetly, her tone positively glowing with mischief. Totally normal. Just sitting. Their fingers slowly inched closer, trying to hook around his like they were playing some quiet game of chicken. Izuku was on the verge of short-circuiting. This is, Toru. Mina, my hand. Mina tilted her head, still looking away. Me, just sitting here, enjoying the ride, she said, oh so innocently. Izuku's face was fully red now, smoke practically coming out of his ears. His hands twitched like he didn't know whether to pull away or stay perfectly still. Eyes up. We're here, Aizawa's voice called dryly from the front of the bus. All three of them jolted like they'd been hit with cold water, hands snapping back to their own sides in record time. Izuku's face was still beet red as he walked with the rest of the class, most of whom were busy chatting about the upcoming training. But Izuku wasn't hearing any of it. His thoughts kept drifting spiraling right back to the bus ride. The brush of hands, the fluttery feeling in his chest he refused to think too hard about. And then, like fate hated him, Mina ended up walking right beside him. You're awfully quiet, Midori, she said, scooting a little closer with a suspicious smile. Something on your mind? Izuku quickly averted his gaze, the tips of his ears already glowing pink. And nope, I mean, nothing important. I'm just thinking about the exercise. Mina grinned, as she let her arm swing just enough for her hand to accidentally brush his again. Izuku tensed like he'd been hit with static. Weird, Mina hummed, feigning innocence as she leaned forward a bit to peer up at him. Your face is all red. That's not from thinking too hard, is it? It's hot out, Izuku blurted, even though it clearly wasn't. Mina giggled, clearly enjoying every second of it. All right, Class A. All Might's booming voice echoed through the mock city, causing everyone to snap to attention. They stood in formation, surrounded by the towering buildings of the training zone. Floating a few feet above the ground with her arms crossed was Xylene, the alien woman who had been assisting in recent lessons. This will be your final lesson before you and Class B shift into a less physical phase of your hero training. All Might announced, radiating energy like a spotlight in human form. The class broke into murmurs and side glances. Less physical, Hiroshima repeated under his breath, scratching the back of his neck. What's that mean? No more combat drills. Ribbit, when you say less physical, do you mean we won't be training anymore? She asked bluntly. Not exactly, All Might said with a chuckle. You'll still be training, just not with your fists. We're moving into another critical part of being a pro. How you carry yourself in public, how to talk to civilians, and how to handle patrols professionally. In a few days, you'll join myself and another pro on mock patrols to learn what's expected of you in the field. The class lit up like a row of Christmas trees. Ochako bounced on her toes, Hiroshima pumped a fist, and Mina squealed in excitement. Wait, for real? Mina gasped, stars in her eyes. We're actually going out to patrol like the pros. Zero added, wide grin forming. Hiroshima pumped his fist. Ah yeah, finally some real hero work. This is gonna be manly. Bet we still have to do paperwork. Kaminari muttered, slouching slightly. There's always paperwork. No one said it'd be all glamour, Juro said. Izuku blinked, the excited chatter fading into the background as his mind drifted. If we're going out there, I might have a shot. Maybe I can find anything about that guy. He clenched his hand slightly, glancing down at the Omnitrix on his wrist. I'll use fast track. Just run around, check things out. Even a clue would help. And I can make it back before anyone notices. All Might laughed heartily, arms akimbo. That's the spirit. The true test of a hero isn't just in battle but in how they act when the cameras aren't rolling. Something on your mind, Midoriya? Xylene asked from above. Izuku startled slightly. No, ma'am. Just processing. Xylene let out a long sigh, pinching the bridge of her nose. Her expression was more irritated than stern, like someone who'd been talked into something she found beneath her intellect. Since our dear principal is so invested in this patrol preparation exercise, she said, voice dry with sarcasm, I've decided to increase the difficulty of today's training. The class immediately quieted down, attention sharpening as Xylene gestured toward a nearby mock bank across the training field. This session will continue where we left off last time but with a new twist. Everyone leaned in, eyes drawn to the building. Inside the glass windows, they could see three figures. Midnight, dressed in a surprisingly modest professional outfit, tied up and gagged in the corner. Present Mike sat beside her, similarly restrained. Towering over him was a tall, humanoid robot with 6 mechanical arms, one of which held a gun pointed directly at Mike's head. As that, Present Mike, Mina blinked, and Midnight, Kaminari added, gawking, whoa, she actually looks really classy without all the, dominatrix gear. A few of the boys including Zero and Mineta nodded in sheepish agreement. Mineta let out a quiet, appreciative whistle before Jiro elbowed him hard in the ribs. Focus, curves, she muttered. Xylene didn't acknowledge the comment. The robot in that simulation is designed to counter a wide range of quirks including yours. It will adapt in real time. Your objective is simple. Prevent civilian casualties and resolve the hostage situation. All Might stepped forward, his tone more encouraging. This is meant to push you. Think outside the box, your environment, even your opponent's assumptions. Being a hero isn't just about what you can do with your quirk, it's important to know what you can do without it. Zero whistled low. This is gonna be intense. All right, Class A. Let's go. All Might's voice boomed across the mock city. The first student to step forward was Aoyama. As expected, he strutted toward the simulated bank with the confidence of a man about to walk a runway. 2S about to lose, Mon Ami. He declared dramatically, striking a pose as the doors slid open. His cape fluttered as if on cue. The class collectively groaned. Inside, the robot turned to face him. A mechanical whir preceded a polite but menacing voice. The hero. I can't stop twinkling. It raised a gun and aimed it squarely at Present Mike's head. MMPPHH. Midnight gave an exaggerated muffled scream, eyes wide for added effect. Present Mike squirmed in his restraints, clearly putting effort into the performance. Fear not, Aoyama declared, chest puffed out. For Ayuga Aoyama shall save you with my radiance. With a dramatic flourish, he thrust his hips forward. FWOOOSH. A brilliant naval laser burst from his belt, slicing through the air toward the robot. But the bot's arms moved rapidly, deploying angled metallic mirrors like a blooming steel flower. Ping, ping, ping ping ping. The beam ricocheted wildly and then crack. It struck Aoyama dead center in the chest, launching him out the bank's front doors like a human firework. Oof, Izuku winced. That's gonna leave a mark. Kyoka folded her arms beside him. Yeah, wouldn't wanna be in his sparkly boots right now. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed through the training field. Inside the simulation, Present Mike's head snapped to the side, and he slumped dramatically in his chair, tongue out. I'm down. Tell my records. I loved them, he croaked before going limp. Midnight rolled her eyes through her gag. Target eliminated, it said. Aoyama, failure, hostage lost. Her tone was sharp but not cruel. Next time, maybe think before you sparkle blindly in a hostage situation. Aoyama groaned from the bush, one arm weakly raised in defeat. Mon. Dieu. Xylene turned to the group again, eyes narrowing. Ashido, you're up. Try not to be as theatrical. Mina inhaled, rolling her shoulders and cracking her neck. All right then, let's dance, metalhead. Mina crouched low, acid already bubbling at her fingertips as she skated toward the building on a slick trail of slime. Her eyes locked onto the robot holding Present Mike and Midnight hostage. "All right, Metalhead," she shouted as she picked up speed. "Let's see how well you handle melting." Acid dripped from her hands, sizzling against the tile floor and leaving hissing burn marks in her wake. Her eyes locked on the multi-armed robot as it remained perfectly still. "Take this," Mina yelled, hurling a concentrated glob of acid toward the machine. Just before it hit, the robot activated a hidden fan-like mechanism from its shoulder. With a loud whir, it spun rapidly, catching the acid midair and scattering it in all directions. Mina's eyes widened. Wait, whoosh. The acid splattered everywhere, spraying like a burst balloon across walls, desks, and ceilings. Smoke curled up where it landed, bubbling and eating through surfaces. "Crap, crap, crap," Mina yelped, diving behind a half-melted reception desk just as some of her own acid scorched past her. The robot turned its head toward her. The pH heroin amino acid countermeasure deployed. A panel on its chest popped open. Thwack. A boxing glove on a spring launched out like something from a villainous Jack-in-the-Box, slamming into Mina's torso with brutal force. She was sent crashing through the desk and tumbled head over heels out the front door. Mina groaned from the pavement, arms spread and eyes spinning. Inside the building, another loud bang rang out. Midnight gasped, then slumped over dramatically in her chair. "Hostage eliminated," the robot announced. Xylene didn't even blink as she jotted notes down on her tablet, one brow twitching in quiet disappointment. Mina Ashido. Failed to neutralize threat and protect hostages. Mina raised a shaky hand. Do I get points for style?" "No," Xylene said flatly. "All right," she called. "Asui Suyu, you're up next. Impress me, Ribbit," Suyu murmured, her hands folded in front of her as her name was called. "Good luck, Su," Ochako said with an encouraging smile and a raised fist. Suyu glanced over her shoulder, uncertain, then turned her gaze to Izuku, who was muttering to himself while analyzing the simulation. "Ribbit, Izuku." Izuku flinched slightly, snapping out of his thoughts. "Oh Su, sorry, I was thinking." She blinked up at him with her usual bluntness. "Do you have any ideas on how I can get past that robot?" Izuku tilted his head, brows furrowed. If he was being honest, not really. It's tricky. The robot's clearly designed to counter each of our quirks individually. It probably has something set up just for you. So then, it would use cold. Momo added, stepping forward. "Your frog physiology makes you sluggish in low temperatures, right?" "Then I'm in trouble," she said flatly. "If it's cold enough, I might pass out before I get anywhere near the hostages." There was a beat of silence, until Ochako's gaze drifted around the building, and her eyes landed on a maintenance vent along the wall. She leaned toward Izuku and gave him a playful nudge. "Hey, Dekiru," she whispered, "I think I've got an idea." Izuku's eyes widened as he followed her line of sight. Then a small smirk curled his lips. "Su, we've got something." Inside the bank simulation, the robot's multiple arms were still drawn, one gun pressed theatrically to present Mike's head while the others twitched and scanned for intruders. The temperature in the room dropped rapidly as mist curled low around the floor. Deploying countermeasures. Hero codename Froppy. A cold mist filled the room, and Midnight and Present Mike shivered as visible puffs of breath formed in the air. The hostages could only exchange helpless glances. Then clink. Barely audible, the vent behind them slid open with a creak. A tongue slithered silently from the opening, moving with precision and stealth. It looped gently around Midnight's waist and, inch by inch, began to pull her up into the darkness. The robot's gaze remained locked on the front door. WHRRR, click, scanning. Midnight disappeared soundlessly into the shaft above, eyes wide in amazement. Seconds later, the tongue darted out again. Snap. It latched around Present Mike's upper chest and, without a single noise, pulled him up and away. Then, slam. The vent slammed shut just as the robot finally turned around. The robot's eyes flashed green with a faint beep. Hostages secured. The hero. Froppy pass. A burst of cheers erupted from Class A. Froppy, Froppy, Froppy. The students chanted as Suyu returned with both Midnight and Present Mike safely in tow, her face tinged with pink from the sudden attention. Xylene, arms crossed, simply gave a small, approving nod. Impressive use of the environment. Well done. Suyu gave a modest, quiet, ribbit, thanks. All right, moving on, Xylene said, her tone calm but sharp. Next. Tenya Iida. Understood. Iida said with a firm nod, adjusting his glasses before bursting into a sprint toward the building's side entrance. He aimed to take the robot by surprise. Unfortunately, the robot was faster. As Iida kicked the door open, a slick oil trail suddenly spread across the floor, as his foot slipped. Whoa! He careened forward with a shout before the robot met him with a perfectly timed punch straight to the chest. Crash! Glass shattered as Iida was flung through the window, skidding across the pavement. Tenya Iida. Failed, the robot stated flatly as another simulated gunshot rang out. Inside, Present Mike slumped again in exaggerated slow motion. URRRGH. I die once more. Apologies. Iida groaned, twitching on the ground. Next Ochako Uraraka, Xylene called, glancing at her clipboard. Let's do this, Ochako muttered, slapping her cheeks lightly as she ran in with a confident stride. She entered the room without activating her quirk, slipping into a low stance. Her eyes locked on the robot as she recalled her gunhead martial arts training. Keep it close, control the limbs, disable the arms, she muttered to herself before dashing forward. She ducked beneath the robot's swing, spun on her heel, and landed a solid palm strike to the torso, tagging it. Gotcha. The robot's heavy frame immediately began to float into the air, its feet lifting inches off the ground as gravity stopped working on it. The class watching outside leaned forward. Nice. Kirishima cheered. Ochako's gonna toss it and grab the hostages. Kaminari grinned. But then the robot's eyes flashed yellow. Gravity countermeasures. Engaging stabilizing propulsion. From its back, a set of rocket boosters ignited with a loud FWOOOSH. Wait, what? Ochako gasped, eyes going wide. Still floating, the robot rocketed backward midair, using the boosters for controlled flight, and launched a swift piston punch directly into her abdomen. Wham! Ochako was launched clean through the air, out the same broken window Iida went flying through. Midnight and Present Mike looked on, then Present Mike slumped over with a dramatic groan. Ochako Uraraka. Failed. Hostage eliminated. Another gunshot. Present Mike did a dramatic death spin, clearly having way too much fun. Ow, Ochako mumbled, lying sprawled on the ground. Next. Masharao Ojiro, Xylene announced. The tailed hero in training rolled his shoulders and cracked his knuckles. All right, let's try a simple, clean approach. He entered the building without flash or gimmicks, relying on instinct and martial technique. Inside, the robot readied its weapons, but Ojiro didn't rush in. Instead, he kept low, weaving through the wreckage, striking only when he saw openings. His tail swept the robot's legs, buying him enough time to reach Midnight and Present Mike. He began untying them swiftly, blocking a mechanical arm with a spin kick before using his tail like a springboard, as he grabbed both Midnight and Present Mike and vaulted over a desk. The robot lunged, but Ojiro spun in place, his tail smacking the robot's face just long enough to break line of sight. Midnight and Present Mike stumbled out of the building behind him. Phew, that was close, Ojiro said, panting. Hostages secured. Masharao Ojiro pass. Class A clapped, with Sato giving a supportive, nice one, man. All right, Xylene said, her voice cutting through the noise. Next up. Kaminari Denki. Next up was Kaminari. He gave a thumbs up, clearly trying to hide how nervous he was. All right. Let's see if I can do the whole stealthy vent thing like Sue, he muttered to himself as he climbed clumsily into a nearby duct. Unfortunately, stealthy was not Kaminari's strong suit. Clang, clank, bonk. Metal echoed loudly with every knee and elbow he bumped on the way through. Inside the simulation, the robot's red eyes flicked toward the ceiling. Unidentified presence detected in ventilation system. Kaminari finally reached the drop point, grinned, and leapt out with a dramatic shout. Surprise! Huh, FWIP. A strange mesh-like net burst out midair, wrapping around Kaminari and crackling slightly. He hit the ground with a loud thunk and let out a winded, oof, wait, huh. The net tightened and insulated instantly, his electricity harmlessly fizzing out as he squirmed. Hey, Wait, no fair. Kaminari's face went pale as the robot began approaching with mechanical thuds, a panel in its chest opening to reveal a spring-loaded boxing glove. Oh no. No. Guys. Little help. I surrender. I give up. How? The glove slammed into him with a cartoonish boink and sent him sprawling backwards, twitching slightly, his mouth open in a frozen, wah expression as his eyes rolled in a dazed swirl. The robot stepped back and declared flatly, Denki Kaminari, failed. Next Koji Koda. He quietly approached the building, placing his hand on the ground. Nearby rodents peeked out from sewer drains and followed his silent command. Inside, the robot turned toward the front door completely unaware that a group of rats were scurrying behind the hostages, chewing through their bindings. Midnight blinked in surprise as a small paw pulled her gag down. Moments later, Koda slipped in silently, grabbed both teachers, and signaled the rats to scatter and distract the robot with squeaks and flashes of motion. By the time the robot looked back, the hostages were gone. Koji Koda passed. Nice. Izuku whispered. That was actually really smart. Xylene raised her eyes slightly, mildly impressed, then tapped again. Rikido Sato. Proceed. Sato entered with his usual solid stance, pulling out a sugar cube from his pouch and popping it into his mouth. His muscles swelled as he bulked up. The robot greeted him with a canister that popped open, spraying more sugar into his face, to which he got bigger but unfortunately dumber. HNGGHH. Come. Here. Sugar overload initiated, the robot said, sidestepping a wild punch from Sato. It ducked, weaved, and kept him spinning in circles. Sato's boosted energy quickly faded into sluggish swings, his eyes glazing. I'm not done yet. Sato huffed, his arms swinging slower and less coordinated with each punch, before collapsing onto his knees and toppling over, drooling slightly. Rikido Sato failed. Next up was Shoji. The tall, multi-armed student adjusted his face mask and nodded silently before entering the simulation. He kept low, using his dupli arms to scout ahead through the windows and cracks. But despite his size, subtlety wasn't his strongest skill. With no real strategy in mind, he relied on raw strength and burst through the entrance with a battle cry, hoping to overpower the robot through sheer force. The robot's head snapped toward him immediately. Identified. Multi-limbed combatant. Engaging countermeasures. Several mechanical arms burst from the walls, entangling Shoji in a web of reinforced cables before he could even get a full lunge in. He struggled, tearing at the bindings, only to freeze when the gun pointed straight at Midnight's head. Bang. Mezzo Shoji. Failed. Kyoka Jiro. Proceed. Jiro casually rolled her neck, pulling her earphone jacks loose. Let's break this robot's eardrums. She stepped inside and immediately jammed her jacks into the ground. Heartbeats surround. A concussive sonic wave erupted, instantly shattering every window in the building. The lights flickered, ceiling tiles collapsed, and the robot staggered, but didn't fall. Yes, Kyoka muttered, ducking low and sprinting toward Midnight and Present Mike. Then the robot's head rotated, and from its skull, two very real noise-canceling headphones clicked down over its ears. Kyoka's eyes widened. Wait, what? Blam, blam. Two more gunshots rang out. Midnight and Present Mike slumped dramatically. You have got to be kidding me. Before she could retreat, a spring-loaded punch slammed into her side, launching her through the shattered wall. Ah, damn it, she groaned, sprawled on the pavement. Kyoka Jiro. Failed. Zero was next. All right, let's stick to what I do best, he muttered. With his tape spinning silently, Zero climbed the outer walls and snuck in through a skylight. Once inside, he stayed out of view and waited for the right moment. With the robot distracted by false audio loops from the simulation, Zero acted fast. Two long strands of tape zipped out, wrapping around Midnight and Present Mike. Let's go, he whispered, pulling them upward and through the ceiling exit. Fumikage Tokiyami followed after. Dark shadow loomed large in front of him. This enemy will fall, Tokiyami muttered. For the night is my ally. He entered the building, dark shadow extending outward. The moment they entered, however, the robot activated several high-intensity LED spotlights. Anti-shadow defense deployed. TCH. Dark Shadow hissed and recoiled, shrinking in size instantly. No good, Tokiyami muttered grimly. Dark Shadow is ineffective under such light. Without any real offense or way to reach the hostages, Tokiyami sighed and exited with a heavy bow. Tokiyami Fumikage admitted defeat. Then came Todoroki. Finally, he muttered, stepping into the field. Let's end this quickly. As he entered the building, the robot's scans intensified, clearly assessing him as a high-threat target. I won't give you time to counter, Todoroki muttered as frost spread out instantly from his right side, freezing walls, floors, and even partially encasing the robot's lower body. The robot tried to move, but was stuck. Nice, Izuku whispered from outside. He might actually pull this off. The robot scanned him quickly. Detected. Ice-type power. Activating heat dispersal units. Its body glowed orange with internal heat, steaming and sizzling as it countered Todoroki's freezing assault. Todoroki growled. Fine then. He raised his left hand, flames bursting to life, but hesitated. If he melted the robot too fast, he'd risk harming Midnight and Present Mike. The hostages were still within blast radius. That hesitation was all the robot needed. Blam, blam, hostages down. Todoroki's flames sputtered as he stared, jaw tightening. Shoto Todoroki. Failed. Hostages eliminated. Next up, Toru Hagakure, Xylene announced without looking up from her tablet. Toru shot up from her seat with a peppy, all right, my turn. She then turned visible for just a second, hands on hips, flashing a cheeky grin as she gave a quick wink toward Izuku. Wish me luck, Midori, she sang. Then, with a shimmer, her body blinked out of sight, leaving only her voice and the faintest outline of footprints in the grass. Mwah, a light peck landed on his cheek. He flinched, heat rushing to his face as his hand flew up to the spot. Wah, a small giggle echoed from nowhere beside him. Inside the building, the robot's eyes glowed red the moment the doors creaked open. Countermeasures. Invisible Girl, deployed. Suddenly, sprinklers activated, dousing the room with water. A shimmer appeared midair as the droplets revealed Toru's outline, her glistening form flickering like a soaked glass sculpture. Eep, not fair, she squeaked, as she slipped in a puddle right into the path of a spring-loaded boxing glove that launched straight from the robot's chest. Oh no, wham, she spiraled out the shattered window like a flying ragdoll, crashing into the grass with a loud thud and a faint sparkle from the water. Flat on her back, she groaned. Aw man, so uncool, she muttered, cheeks burning, even if no one could see them. Toru Hagakure. Failed, the robot declared flatly. Still lying flat in the puddle, Toru sighed internally. Aw man, so uncool. Please tell me Midori didn't see that. Back at the table, Xylene glanced back down at the tablet in her hand. Next would have been Katsuki Bakugo, but she paused, then looked up at Aizawa, who subtly shook his head. No go, still suspended. Xylene sighed, noted, skipping. She tapped the screen again. Izuku Midoriya. Izuku blinked and sat up straighter. Huh, oh, right. He stood, taking a deep breath as he rolled his shoulders, clenching and relaxing his fists. Go get him, hero. Mina shouted, cupping her hands around her mouth. Kick that hunk of scrap's ass. Kaminari called out, still stuck and awkwardly twisted in the net. He tried to strike a fist pump pose but ended up slapping himself in the face. Ow. Worth it. Show that metal jerk who's boss. Toru added. Momo gave him a soft smile. You've analyzed all of our attempts. You'll find a way. Kyoka offered a nonchalant thumbs up. Don't overthink it. Just knock it down. Rootin' for ya, Ochako added, beaming and bouncing slightly on her toes. Izuku gave them all a grateful look, a small smile tugging at the corners of his lips. Then his face shifted to a more focused one. As he reached the doorway, he exhaled one last time and pressed the button as with a chirp click, the core popped up, and a rotating hologram of Big Chill. It's hero time. Izuku's body crackled with emerald lightning, electricity arcing off his limbs as he bolted into the building. The moment his foot crossed the threshold, danger sense flared in his skull like a needle being stabbed in his brain. Whump! Thwack! Crack! A barrage of bean-bag rounds blasted through the windows with the force of cannonballs. Izuku weaved between them with some dance footwork, ducking low and springing up just as one grazed his shoulder. Izuku continued to zigzag between them, barely a blur of green as he twisted midair and slammed his palm down onto the Omnitrix. A burst of green light exploded in the room. The robot fired again, only for the beanbags to harmlessly fly through his transformed body. Big chill, the ghostly alien declared, his wings trailing a cold mist behind him. With one motion from his wings, he rocketed forward, phasing effortlessly through a hail of incoming fire of beanbags. It won't matter what it fires, I can phase right through. Big Chill thought with a smirk. He dove forward, slipping through the next volley like fog through cracks before drawing in a deep, icy breath. FWOOOOOOOOSSSSHH. A blast of freezing air blanketed the robot in thick frost, encasing it in a jagged shell of ice. Outside, Class A erupted into cheers. Woo, let's go Dekiru, Ochako shouted with both hands cupped around her mouth. That robot doesn't stand a chance if he can't even touch him. Mina beamed. Big Chill's got this in the bag. Nearby, Midnight and Present Mike visibly shivered. See cold fronts rolling in early, Present Mike muttered through chattering teeth. But suddenly, the robot's optics glowed an ominous red beneath the ice and a hiss filled the bank. Big Chill stopped midair as the ice began to steam and melt rapidly, evaporating fill the bank with steam. Necrophrygian countermeasures. Active. Big Chill blinked. Wait. WH. The ice shattered as the robot superheated its frame, steam blasting outward in a violent hiss. Big Chill dodged ice shards as he quickly flew towards Midnight and Present Mike. I have to save them quickly. A white net shot from the robot's arm like a missile. Big Chill instinctively phased, only for the net to follow, wrapping around him mid-phase. What the? Big Chill's eyes widened as the net wrapped around him mid before sending powerful volts that tore through him. Og! He screamed, spasming and convulsing midair before his body crashed to the ground, tumbling hard. Before he could even look up, a spring-loaded boxing glove slammed into Big Chill's, launching him like a cannonball straight out of the bank. He crashed into the training field with a thud, skidding across the ground, still tangled in the glowing net. Inside the net, Big Chill twitched, still taking soft electrical pulses. What the hell is this thing? He muttered, trying to phase again, only to fail. Frustrated, he tapped the Omnitrix dial on his chest. Another green flash lit up the field as Izuku reappeared, smoke rising from his singed uniform. He struggled to sit up. I'm okay, he grunted. Hold still, Momo said gently, kneeling to help untangle the net while Kyoka crouched on the other side, frowning. Whoa, easy, Kyoka muttered, carefully pulling the glowing strands aside. Momo reached under his arm and helped lift him up. Izuku stumbled, but caught himself, only to realize his face was barely inches from hers. His breath hitched, cheeks immediately flushing pink. Momo's own eyes widened slightly, especially when she felt her nose brush against his. Momo's face colored faintly too. She cleared her throat quickly and looked away. Ahem. Gee, good effort, Momo said, brushing some dust off his shoulder with a composed but slightly flustered expression. Why yeah, thanks, Izuku muttered, trying to ignore the pounding in his chest. Though, being electrocuted and sucker-punched by a robot wasn't really part of the plan. Kyoka raised an eyebrow and nudged his side. Still, gotta admit, the first half. Pretty badass. Then she smirked. Second half. Kind of a disaster. Xylene, arms still crossed, an expression unreadable, finally answered. Standard plumber-grade suppressor mesh. Specially designed to trap phasing or intangible lifeforms. Works best on those who aren't trained to expect it. Izuku winced, nodding. Right. Note to self. Train harder. Kyoka gave him a light punch in the arm. You say that like you don't already. Izuku smiled at that, which made Kyoka smile back. Xylene didn't look up from her screen. Next participant. Minoru Mineta. Mineta let out a squeak from where he was trying to shrink behind Shoji. See, can I just sit this one out? I'm, emotionally recovering from Midoriya's brutal takedown. No, Xylene said flatly, without even looking up. Mineta turned to his classmates, arms out like he was pleading for divine intervention. Hey, I think I pulled something watching everyone get obliterated. Ow, yep, there it is. Definitely a muscle, and plus I'm a support type. You can't expect me to move. Xylene said coolly, her tone leaving zero room for negotiation. A collective wince rippled through the group as Mineta whimpered toward the bank entrance like he was being sent into a lion's den. Quote. This is gonna be a slaughter, Kaminari whispered. Quote. I give him 15 seconds, Zero added. 10, said Jiro with a smirk. 2 minutes later, a puff of smoke burst from the doorway as Mineta stumbled out of the bank, his costume scorched and his cape trailing behind him like a defeated flag. His hair was frazzled in every direction, and several of his grape balls were stuck to his own face. I saw my life flash before my eyes, and it was just so much porn. With a dramatic wheeze, he took one step, then immediately collapsed face first onto the pavement. Thump. Cartoonishly large bumps dotted his head like angry mountains. The class winced collectively. Well, that went about as well as expected, Kyoka muttered. At least he put in some good effort, Izuku offered, trying to be supportive despite Mineta's groaning. Xylene gave a small nod, then glanced at her tablet. Now, Momo Yaoyorozu. Momo inhaled sharply. Right. She squared her shoulders, adjusted her glasses, and jogged toward the simulated bank entrance. She stopped just before crossing the threshold and activated the lens display on her glasses. A dozen schematics flickered to life in her vision as she scrolled past the blueprints. Okay, think, she murmured, mentally bracing herself. If it has a way to neutralize my quirk, it'll likely deploy something onto my skin, sticky resin. Electric shock, high-pressure foam. She shook her head, pushing down the spiral. No time to second guess. She quickly materialized a grapple launcher and fired it up to the roof. The hook clinked against the edge, locking in place. With a deep breath, she zipped upward and rolled onto the rooftop. Once atop the bank, she crouched and scanned the skyline. The lenses scrolled through dozens of schematics, some marked, Brainstorm, Variant X, others tagged with, Non-lethal disruption. Her eyes caught on a compact canister etched with corrosion symbols. Oh, that might just work, she whispered, a small smile tugging at her lips. A minute later, a small metal capsule dropped through the broken skylight. It bounced once across the cracked marble before hissing violently and detonating in a chemical puff of iridescent mist. The robot's sensors flared, unidentified substance detected, engaging Hero Cree, but its words slurred, its joints jerked and spasmed, servos grinding. Sparks flew from its limbs as the corrosive mist began eating into its internal wiring, exposing. From above, Momo descended swiftly down her rope, swinging through the gap. She landed beside the hostages, generating 2 short batons and breaking the restraints holding Midnight and Present Mike in place. Hold on to me, she called, wrapping one arm around each of them. The robot jerked violently in pursuit, sparking and screeching, its chest bursting open in fits of mechanical fury. But before it could recover, Momo dashed with her professors toward the exit, throwing a smoke bomb behind her for cover. The doors slid open as she emerged, panting slightly. Her legs gave out the moment she was clear of the entrance, and she dropped to her knees, chest rising and falling. The robot's voice chimed in flatly from behind her. Momo Yaoyorozu, past. Cheers erupted from the group. Yeah, let's go. Kaminari fist pumped. First one of us to actually take down the murder bot, Zero laughed, slapping his shoulder. Way to go, Yaoyorozu. Suyu said with a soft smile and a croak. Woo, Present Mike bellowed. That's how you shake the stage, Kriti. Bringing that big brain energy, yeah. Midnight gave her a nod of approval. Momo gave a tired smile, still catching her breath. From the back, Izuku watched quietly, eyes wide in awe. That was incredible, he muttered. Momo looked up, and caught him staring. Her face flushed pink, and she quickly turned her head, pretending to dust off her pants. Xylene nodded before turning toward the class. With that, today's exercise is complete. All Might stepped forward, voice carrying over the chatter. Now, I know some of you may feel frustrated or disappointed. He looked across the gathered students with serious eyes. But that's good. Reflect on it. Every loss, every setback, is a lesson. He let the silence settle before continuing. There will be times when your quirks won't help you. When you're powerless. In those moments, being prepared is the only thing that will keep others alive. If you're not, his tone darkened just slightly, the consequences may be irreversible. And trust me, blood is not something you want on your hands. The class collectively nodded, but then, with a sharp gleam in his eye, All Might suddenly struck a familiar pose. And now, watch me exit, like a hero. With a booming laugh, he blasted away into the distance, wind kicking up around them as he vanished in a blur. Time skip. Mina plopped onto the couch with a dramatic groan. My everything hurts. The rest of Class 1A trudged into the dorm lounge behind her, all moving with the collective exhaustion of students who had been through hell, and then topped it off with a visit to Recovery Girl, who'd sapped what little energy they had left to heal their bruises. Who knew getting my butt kicked by a 6-armed robo-nightmare would be so painful, Mina grumbled, hugging a throw pillow like a lifeline. Toru plopped down beside her, her usually chipper tone tinged with annoyance. At least you didn't get dunked in freezing water. My hair's all frizzed up, it feels like seaweed right now. You can turn invisible, Kaminari groaned from where he was face down on the floor. Why do you even care? Because I know, Toru huffed. And I have standards. Iida adjusted his glasses, though even he moved with noticeably less pep. While the training was unorthodox, it was undoubtedly an excellent simulation. Being forced to adapt under pressure is the essence of hero work. Ochako gave him a look. That's rich coming from the guy who wiped out on a wet floor and got launched through a window 5 seconds in. Iida froze. A dark aura seemed to wash over him as he slumped ever so slightly. I do not wish to relive that moment. Izuku gave a sheepish chuckle, still rubbing at a faint scorch mark on his sleeve. Yeah, well, at least we figured out more about our weaknesses, he said with a thoughtful hum. I really didn't expect there to be plumber tech that could cancel out big chills phasing like that. If I ever have to deal with those nets again, I need a workaround. He was clearly already slipping into analysis mode. Mina raised an eyebrow, rolling over to face him with a smirk. Wow, look at you still being all sunshine and strategy after getting your butt handed to you like the rest of us. Izuku flinched slightly, a pink hue crawling up his cheeks. I didn't get my butt handed to me. The robot just caught me off guard. I totally had it under control. He protested, voice pitching slightly higher by the end. Mina said, dragging out the syllables playfully. Because when you were all tangled up in that net flailing around like a caught bunny, that totally screamed control. The girls around the room chuckled at his flustered defense. Even Suyu let out a soft ribbit, covering her mouth with a hand. Kyoka leaned over and bumped his shoulder with hers. Still handled yourself better than Mina. Need I remind everyone that someone nearly melted the entire mock bank? Mina bolted upright on the couch, pointing dramatically. Hey, that was not my fault. The robot started using fans, it was blowing my acid everywhere. Oh yeah, totally the robot's fault, Kyoka said with a dramatic eye roll. The class continued chatting among themselves, bantering about the brutal training exercises they nursed their bruised egos. About an hour later, the doors slid open again, and Class B staggered in like survivors of a small war. Yikes, Kaminari muttered. Damn 6-armed psycho bot, Manoma muttered under his breath. Kamakiri let out a grunt and extended one of his blades that had been rusted and corroded. He snapped it off before tossing. That bastard oxidized me. TCH. Thing didn't pull a single punch, he grunted. That robot was trying to kill us, man. Yui walked in next, as calm and expressionless as always. She quietly sat on the floor across from Suyu and Todoroki, hands resting neatly in her lap. You're not in a good mood, Shoto said plainly, making a few classmates glance his way in confusion. The girl looked as blank-faced as ever. Yui met her gaze briefly, then gave the barest of nods. Robot was irritating, she sighed. It couldn't counter my quirk well. But it still eliminated present Mike. Midnight too. I lost too, Todoroki said, without even a hint of shame. I managed to pass, Suyu replied with a soft croak, tilting her head slightly. Hero. Barely, though, Yui gave a small grunt, almost a sigh. Lucky, she said simply. Juzo shook his head, half laughing. Man, I haven't been this beat up since the festival. Class A watched the rest of Class B collapse into various seats and corners of the lounge. Glad to see we weren't the only ones treated like chew toys, Kaminari mumbled from under a blanket. Manga burst in behind them with a burst of sound effects following him. Kablam. My bones are noodles now. That thing straight up suplexed me. Pony let out an exhausted groan as she flopped down on the armrest next to Tetsu, who was still hunched over with his forehead resting on the back of the couch. It kicked me into a wall, she mumbled, hugging her knees and letting her long hair drape over one shoulder. Tetsu gave her a tired thumbs up without lifting his head. Wall buddies. Wall buddies. Pony nodded. Don't feel too bad. We all got our butts handed to us, Mina said, her arm thrown over her eyes dramatically. Well, not everyone, Momo chimed. I passed too, Zero added, and in a pretty awesome way, if I do say so myself. He tried to sound modest, but the smug curve of his mouth betrayed him. Well, okay, not everyone lost, Toru said, giggling as she nudged Pony's arm. But hey, if it makes you feel better, even Midoriya got wrecked. Izuku groaned, throwing his head back. Please don't remind everyone. Before he could say more, he suddenly found himself face to face with a very close, very curious Pony. Her big blue eyes blinked at him, barely an inch from his nose. Really? She gasped. You lost. You. Izuku jumped slightly, blushing as he leaned back. Pony just smiled sheepishly. Sorry. It's just. I thought you'd ace that robot. Izuku scratched the back of his head, still flustered. Why yeah. Well, it had anti-necrofrig. Something net. It caught me off guard. Itsuka stepped in with a sly grin, arms crossed. Izuku, you lost. That is surprising. She tilted her head at him thoughtfully. I always figured you were the kind of guy who'd prep for anything. Izuku laughed nervously. Normally I do, but I didn't expect it to have tech that could take down my alien. Pony leaned closer again, eyes lighting up. So what did it use on you? Did it see you phasing and throw, like, sci-fi glue? Technically, Izuku said with a sheepish smile, holding up a finger. Electro-net designed to ensnare intangible lifeforms. Plumber grade. And it hurts. A lot. Pony giggled. Bet it still looked cool. Izuku blinked, a bit stunned. Thanks. The Class A and B continued to chatter mindlessly among themselves. Bakugo kicked the classroom door open with a scowl. His bag was slung roughly over one shoulder. Another goddamn detention. Another lecture from Aizawa. Another reminder that while everyone else got to fight that six-arm training bot, he was stuck reviewing protocol and emergency response like some scrub first year. Well, he is a first year, but not the fucking point. Fucking waste of time, he muttered under his breath, jaw tight. Everyone got to throw down. Even the damn knockoff, Manoma. That smug prick probably won't shut up about it either. Yo, Bakugo. Kirishima called out casually. How'd it go, man? Bakugo grunted. Piss off, hedgehog. Kirishima chuckled. Still salty you're benched. He barely finished the sentence before Bakugo's glare snapped to him, aura flaring with the kind of heat that made even Kaminari flinch across the room. Easy, Kirishima said, raising his hands defensively before slinging an arm around his friend's shoulders. Listen, dude, I get it. It sucks, Kirishima said. But you gotta admit, you fucked up. Like, royally screwed the whole thing. Like, wow, were you serious? I get it, Bakugo barked, jerking his shoulder free. I don't need the damn play-by-play. I'm not trying to dogpile on you, Kirishima said, tone softer now. But you rushed in, ignored the evac plan Midoriya and Yaoyorozu made, and because of that, the class got swept away in that flood. Bakugo looked away, clenching his fists. Kirishima stepped in front of him. Look, you wanna get back out there, right? Prove you're still the top dog. Then stop acting like you're the only one who matters on the field. Heroes work with one another. You don't have to kiss Midoriya's ass or anything, but damn it, at least listen when he's got a solid plan. The guy knows what he's doing. TCH. Don't start that nerd worship crap with me. Yeah, well, unless you wanna keep being benched, you really will get your head straight. There was a pause. Bakugo didn't explode. He just muttered something under his breath, slung his bag higher on his shoulder, and walked toward the stairs. Whatever. Nezu sat behind his desk, his paws neatly folded together as the screen of a laptop displayed a live press conference. Gathered around him were Aizawa, Midnight, All Might, and Xylene, each with grim expressions as they watched the unfolding event. On-screen, a lanky middle-aged man with beige, chin-length messy hair and heavy bags under his eyes adjusted a loose black tie. His shirt was slightly wrinkled, and his tone carried the fatigue of a man who hadn't slept in days. Yokumiru Mera let out a long yawn before speaking into the microphone in front of him. Good afternoon. Yokumiru Mera, acting head of the Hero Public Safety Commission. I know, you've all been waiting for us to say something about the recent, mess. Dozens of camera lights flared to life like flashbangs as mics were shoved forward. What have you done about the kidnapped children? Were the families informed they weren't dead? Who's responsible for the cover-up? What about accountability? Will there be charges? Mera blinked slowly, raising one hand as if to swat a fly. Yes, slow down, believe it or not, I do have ears. He let out another sigh, this time more weary than bored. Yes, he said, the families of the recovered children have been contacted. So far, 194 minors who were previously declared dead have been safely returned to their loved ones. We now believe these children were abducted and kept in remote facilities, locations designed to avoid detection. All official records had been falsified, extremely well, I might add. That's why this went unnoticed for so long. He glanced off camera, clearly wanting this to end already, but continued. We are actively working with local authorities and hero agencies to safely extract more survivors from these facilities. Who's responsible for the abductions? Why were they reported as dead in the first place? Mera scratched his head lazily. That's still under investigation. Was Izuku Midoriya involved in uncovering them? One reporter shouted above the others. There was a pause. Mera stared at the screen blankly for a moment before yawning again. The commission can confirm that Midoriya was present at several of the locations that were discovered and played a significant role in exposing them, he muttered, then added dryly, not bad for a high schooler. The room erupted again with noise, reporters barking overlapping questions like a pack of dogs scenting fresh blood. Will Midoriya be held accountable for this gross misuse of power? A reporter called out. Yokumiru Mera let out a tired sigh, running a hand through his messy, chin-length hair. He raised a lazy hand to silence the room. Yes, we're aware that Izuku Midoriya does not currently hold a provisional license, Mera said flatly. We also acknowledge that his prior involvement in incidents like Seijuku Gakuen Academy and the Hero Killer Stain incident, while unconventional, yielded positive results. A murmur rippled through the crowd. All Might narrowed his eyes. Mera continued, that said, we're currently in discussions to have Midoriya work more closely with the Hero Public Safety Commission under supervised operations. You could call this recent incident an impromptu field test, albeit an unplanned one, with extremely promising results. A few reporters blinked. One of them raised a brow. You're saying a middle schooler illegally infiltrating dozens of villain operations was a training run? Unofficially, Mera replied with a half shrug. Let's not ignore the outcome. Nearly 200 children previously believed dead have been returned to their families. That's not something we take lightly. He smiled faintly, eyes still tired. And High has graciously allowed us to begin working more closely with Midoriya. Consider it a guided field partnership. Sort of an early hands-on practicum for gifted candidates with extraordinary potential. Under HSPC supervision, of course. Midnight's brows furrowed as she glanced at Nezu. Aizawa's eyes narrowed. Mera continued casually. This collaboration will help streamline his eventual licensing, and allow us to shape his development in line with public standards and expectations. The public clearly needs more heroes who inspire hope and order. Midoriya is promising. He gave another shrug. We're simply doing our duty to ensure talent like his is nurtured properly. After all, UA has its hands full. We'll have further statements in the coming weeks, he said, already standing. This concludes the press conference. Thank you. Izuku sat on a bench near the edge of the plaza, hunched over slightly as he fiddled with the Omnitrix on his wrist. Click, click, click. His mind was elsewhere, specifically on him. Whoever this doppelganger is, he has to have an Omnitrix too, Izuku thought, a small crease forming between his brows. There's no way someone can use all my alien forms without it. He paused, thumb hovering above the dial before slowly turning it again. Click. A copycat. Someone who can transform into aliens. A gnawing sensation twisted in his gut. And the way he switches between them so effortlessly, it's like second nature to him. He sighed, head dropping. Meanwhile, I'm still struggling to even switch forms. Half the time, I get stuck in one alien until the timer runs out. It's like he's unlocked something I haven't. The dial lit up again, another alien silhouette cycling past. He's doing something I don't understand. But maybe, if I can find him, if I can just talk to him, he could show me how to actually control this thing. Master it, but even thinking that felt like chasing a ghost. Finding him won't be easy. I don't even know where to start. No pattern, no clues, no idea what he even wants. Click. Class 1A and B. Eyes forward. All Might's booming voice snapped Izuku back to reality. He flinched upright, yanking out one earbud as he quickly stood. Around him, his classmates were gathered in the middle of a wide pedestrian crossing, chatting and shifting eagerly. Neon signs flickered overhead, holographic ads playing along tall windows, while people darted in and out of shops and alleyways. And Class B was here, too. Both groups stood in staggered lines. Several civilians walked by, a few stopping to snap pictures or wave at the students. Hey, is that Class A and B from UA? Oh wow, it is. Look at their costumes, so cool. Manoma was the first to react, striking a dramatic pose mid-step, hand over his chest like he was modeling for a magazine. Please, he said, glancing sideways at Class A, make sure you capture my best angle, you know, the one where I don't look like I've been standing next to mediocrity. Ugh, Kaminari muttered. I swear he waits for crowds just to say that. Several students fidgeted under the attention, especially those less used to being in the public eye. Mina twirled with a bright grin. This place is so cool. It's like we're on a mini road trip. Setsuna grinned beside her. Right, I still can't believe we scored a field trip to Shibuya. Hero school perks, huh? Toru bounced on her heels. Maybe we can hit the mall afterward, imagine all the cute clothes. Totally. Shibuya's like fashion heaven, Mina added, clapping her hands. I already saw, like, 3 stores I wanna raid. Iida stepped forward with a sharp karate chop motion. Absolutely not. Please refrain from wandering off. We are here to observe pro-heroes on patrol, not partake in frivolous consumerism. We must present ourselves as true heroes in training. Mina puffed her cheeks. Ah, come on, Iida. Well said, Iida, Aizawa drawled from behind them. His eyes glowed red. Let me make this perfectly clear, you are not here for crepes, selfies, or fast food runs. No one is running off to McDonald's or bubble tea, or whatever trendy distraction catches your attention. Understood. Setsuna instinctively straightened her back, swallowing hard under Aizawa's gaze. Why yes, sir. Ah, buzzkill, Mina muttered, deflating slightly. Vlad King clapped his hands. Anyway, like All Might explained yesterday, today's patrol exercise will be under the guidance of a special guest hero. He'll be helping demonstrate how to conduct yourselves in public, keeping civilians safe, making a strong first impression, and the usual for pro in the making alongside All Might. Think of it as shadowing a real shift, he added with a nod. Yui quietly raised her hand. Vlad King, what hero will we be working with? Aizawa let out a soft groan. He's late, he muttered, glancing at his watch. How irrational. Fashionably, Vlad muttered. Then, leaning closer, he whispered to Aizawa with a tone of resigned annoyance, honestly. The guy's a bit extra. Flashy, loud, way too used to the spotlight. Irrational, Aizawa echoed flatly. Let's hope the class sees through the theatrics. All Might, standing nearby with his arms crossed in a more casual stance, chuckled good-naturedly. Despite that, he is a top hero, especially in the States. Some of you might remember him. He operated in Naruhata for a while before going back to the States again. Wait, Kirishima raised a brow. You mean someone international? That's manly. Ooh, Toru giggled. I hope he's hot. American hero, I wonder. BANG. A loud noise echoed from one of the nearby rooftops, followed by a dramatic gust of wind. Speak of the devil, Aizawa muttered under his breath. Izuku's eyes darted upward as a caped silhouette struck a dramatic pose against the morning sun. His crimson cape flared dramatically in the wind, catching the afternoon sun just right. And then, Boom. In a blur of blue and gold, he rocketed downward and landed hard, leaving a shallow crater in the concrete as dust and debris kicked up in a circle. When it cleared, he was standing tall, fists on his hips, chest puffed out like a comic book cover come to life. "Hello, Class A and B. Future heroes of Japan," he boomed. "Captain Celebrity has officially landed." Izuku blinked rapidly, his jaw slack. Is that? See Captain Celebrity. Whoa, no freakin' way. Kirishima gawked, his voice full of stunned awe. Kaminari elbowed him. "Dude, it's really him. He's like the All Might of America." Mineta, trembling and starstruck, sniffled. I model my entire aesthetic off him." But not everyone was impressed. Mina instinctively backed up behind Izuku, narrowing her eyes. "Nope. No, thank you." Setsuna folded her arms. "I've heard some of the stuff he said in interviews. Let's just say his confidence isn't always charming." Jiro leaned toward Momo, voice hushed. "Wasn't he the guy who made those gross comments about his own sidekick's costume?" Momo nodded with a disapproving frown. "Unfortunately, yes. He apologized after it went viral, but only after. Clearly a few of the girls had been somewhat hesitant to approach the hero." Kaminari blinked. "What's with the cold reception? I mean, yeah, he's flashy, but he's a pro, right? Yeah, you all are acting like he's contagious." Like, Mineta contagious," Awase added, deadpan. Mineta puffed up in offense. "Hey." Pony raised her hand with a sheepish little wave. I think I can explain." Everyone turned to her. She fiddled with one of her horns nervously. "He used to be a huge deal in America," she said carefully, her Japanese solid but still touched by an accent. "But then he got into, a lot of scandals." Suyu tilted her head. "Scandals?" Pony nodded quickly. "Like the, flirting with his fans while still married, kind. He got sued, dropped by sponsors, and kinda, kicked out of the States. My mom even met him once at a signing back in Austin. Said he made a comment about her legs." The class recoiled. "Seriously?" Momo asked, horrified. "Oh yeah." Pony has imitated her mother's sharp southern tone. "That man's a no good, fame-chasing pervert in spandex. The only thing bigger than his ego is his libido, and one of those is gonna get him sued someday." All the girls exchanged glances, and in perfect and spoken agreement, they quickly moved behind Izuku like a flock of startled birds. Wait, why are you all hiding behind me?" Izuku yelped, looking around in confusion as Toru clung to his arm, and Momo subtly used him as a shield. Setsuna smirked, casually peeking over his shoulder. "Come on, Izuku, you've got the best track record for surviving ridiculous situations. If he tries anything, you've got the best odds of beating him up." Mina pointed a finger. "Yeah, no offense to the other guys, but I'm not counting on them to fend off the American version of All Might with a superiority complex, but I'm not counting on Mineta or Kaminari to protect us from the walking lawsuit over there. I'm not dealing with Captain Creepy," Kyoka muttered. "Hey, I'd try," Kaminari protested. "Same," Kirishima added, looking genuinely hurt. "I'm not dealing with that," Yui said flatly. "He makes my skin crawl a little, ribbit." Suyu added. "Oh dear." Momo hesitated. Let's just be cautious. I'd rather not test if those rumors were exaggerated," Kanoko mumbled, her voice barely audible. "Shroom. Back home, girls like me have pepper spray for men like him," Pony said. "Although he's calmed down a lot since Naruhata, sure, but still he's a lot." She twirled one finger and added with a sheepish laugh. "Still, better safe than sorry." Momo, standing just behind Izuku with practiced grace, offered an apologetic smile. "We know it's unreasonable, Izuku, but your presence is reassuring." Izuku flushed pink as he glanced around at the half-circle of girls taking cover behind him. Okay. I guess I can stand in front." "Attaboy, Midori," Mina winked. "America's finest can keep his distance." Captain Celebrity suddenly dropped to his knees in an overly dramatic pose, his red cape fluttering behind him like a stage curtain. "Alas, my past missteps still haunt me," he declared, placing a hand to his heart and clenching his other fist toward the sky. "Even now, the lovely maidens of Japan cower from the mere sight of me." Bakugo scoffed, arms crossed. "TCH, drama queen. He's really theatrical, huh?" Shoto muttered, watching as the man flourished his cape for no apparent reason. Why's he even here? Shiro asked, a little confused. Izuku blinked and looked at Aizawa, who sighed like he had already regretted everything. It was Nezu's idea, Aizawa grunted. Said something about giving you all a taste of international hero culture. Aizawa exhaled through his nose, already anticipating a headache. Class A, Class B, he began. Please show our esteemed guest the same respect you would All Might. His eyes flicked toward the two heroes in question. Behave yourselves. No exceptions. The students straightened up, some nodding, others murmuring affirmatives. All Might beamed, his iconic smile lighting up the plaza as he threw a thumbs up. Beside him, Captain Celebrity struck a dramatic pose, puffing out his chest as both of their capes flared dramatically. Now then, All Might shouted before leaping effortlessly onto the rooftop of a nearby building. He threw back his head with a signature booming laugh, fist to his chest. Ha ha ha, let your presence be felt. Let the people feel safe. Captain Celebrity stepped forward, giving a dazzling smile and a thumbs up to a group of civilians already filming. That's right, All Might. Image, charisma, confidence. You want them to remember your name before you even say it. He turned to the students with his hands on his hips. Remember, every street corner is a potential magazine cover. Be bold, be proud. Izuku's eyes lit up, emerald sparks flickering across his arms as One for All lightly crackled through his limbs. The rest of the students looked just as fired up, grinning in excitement. Now then, rookies, try and keep up. Captain Celebrity declared, you're flying with the best today. From the rooftop, All Might raised a fist high. All right, heroes in training on me. Then, with matching S, they bolted toward the next rooftop, sending wind flying across the street. Izuku grinned. Awesome. With a jump, he launched forward, joined by his classmates as they scrambled after the two pros. Setsuna split her body for better aerial maneuvering while Iida kicked running across the street. All Might and Captain Celebrity slowed their pace slightly, bounding across buildings and pausing occasionally to let the students regroup. Lesson number 2, Captain Celebrity called out over his shoulder. Your patrol starts the second someone sees you, so always look camera ready. All Might laughed heartily. And remember, a smile can go just as far as a quirk when reassuring civilians. From the ground, Aizawa and Vlad King watched the students dart across rooftops as Aizawa exhaled slowly. This is going to be a drag, he muttered. Vlad chuckled and shook his head. Hopefully nothing stupid happens. They exchanged a glance before turning away. Coffee, Vlad offered. Aizawa was already walking. As black as my soul. ... All Might soared effortlessly from rooftop to rooftop, with each mighty leap. Just ahead, Captain Celebrity flew like a missile, arms forward as he spoke. Now that's how a real number one makes an entrance. Captain Celebrity boomed. Watch and learn, Japan. Class A and B gawked in amazement as he soared across the sky like a living comet. Yo, check out that speed. Shiro yelled, grinning as he swung between buildings with his tape. Like a jet engine with abs. Kaminari muttered, impressed. Shoto glided silently on a path of ice, eyes following Captain Celebrity with a quiet nod of respect, though his gaze flicked to All Might now and then, clearly comparing the two. Bakugo's eye twitched. TCH. Showboating jackass, he growled, I'll show you speed. He ignited his gauntlets with a boom, rocketing forward in a fury of explosions, determined to close the gap. Meanwhile, the three girls from different classes had quickly coordinated to help their classmates keep up. Kodai pressed her 5 fingertips together and activated her quirk on several small metal bolts and pieces of debris scattered around the rooftop, enlarging them into platform-sized pieces. Thank you, Kodai, Uraraka said with a grateful smile before placing her fingertips on each enlarged platform. Her zero-gravity quirk made them weightless, causing them to float gently upward. Yanagi then took control with her poltergeist quirk, her hands positioned as if she had been controlling puppets instead of giant metal bolts. Several students without flight abilities gratefully rode along. This coordination is remarkable, Iida noted, 3 different quirks working in perfect harmony. Toru, Shoji, and even Mineta hopped on, albeit with some shrieking from the latter. Try not to fall, grape boy, Reiko added dryly as she began to control the bolts. Above them all, Captain Celebrity's head jerked slightly as he noticed something off in the distance, a helicopter hovering too low with erratic flights. Helicopter chase. Well, looks like I just found today's headline. He veered hard to the left, darting toward a distant stretch of elevated highway where sirens were wailing and the faint whirl of helicopter blades echoed through the city. All Might, catching the shift, narrowed his eyes. Of course he's going for it first, he muttered with a faint grin. Guess I'll let him have his moment. He deliberately slowed, keeping pace with the students well, all except for young Midoriya, who was distracted, flicking through his phone with furrowed brows. All Might raised a curious eyebrow, wondering what had his protege so focused when suddenly, a boom echoed across the skyline. Down below, on a stretch of crowded highways, several police cars and a couple of pro-heroes were chasing a sleek black getaway car weaving dangerously between civilian vehicles. Can't catch me, damn pigs. Suddenly, the ground around the speeding car erupted. Jagged slabs of asphalt and concrete shot up like a wall of fangs, the villain inside slamming both hands on the dashboard as his quirk activated. From under the road, massive rock spikes jutted outward, tearing up the path and sending nearby cars skidding to a stop. Looks like he's got some kind of geo-manipulation quirk, Izuku muttered, definitely some form of seismic surge, concentrated localized tectonics. Back in the air, Captain Celebrity grinned confidently. Watch how a real hero handles business. Instead of diving in, he veered toward a nearby news helicopter and stopped mid-air, chest puffed with a bright smile. Now watch how a professional handles this. After they captured Hid Goodside then, and only then, did he dive down, as twisted in mid-air, narrowly dodging a sharp spike that nearly impaled him. He flipped over it with a grin. Whoa ho, close one, he called, landing momentarily on a floating billboard before launching off it again. You really do hate road laws, huh? The crowd lining the sidewalks cheered loudly as Captain Celebrity zipped through the air, grinning like he was on a red carpet. He waved to the civilians and struck a mid-air pose as chunks of asphalt burst skyward behind him. Thank you, yes I am awesome, he called, blowing a kiss. Damn showboating cape, the villain growled, slamming a glowing palm to the ground. A massive hand of asphalt burst forth like a geyser and swatted Captain Celebrity clean out of the air, sending him crashing through a delivery truck with a crash. Bakugo snorted, crossing his arms. What a dumbass. Izuku landed atop a floating bolt platform with Ochako, wind tousling his hair. Should we jump in, All Might? He asked. All Might chuckled, resting his fists on his hips. No need to worry, young Midoriya. He has this totally under. Right on QFWOOOSH. A red blur burst from the smoking wreck. As Captain Celebrity flew through, brushing a piece of crumpled metal off his shoulder before shooting off like a rocket. Control, All Might finished with a grin. The ground beneath him twisted violently as the villain reshaped the road into jagged loops and spikes, trying to snare or flatten him. Okay, let's give the people what they want. The villain continued to twist the road beneath him like clay, forcing loop-de-loops and spirals in an attempt to throw the hero off as Captain zigzagged through it all. Whoa, Kaminari muttered. That's some next-level terrain control. Cars slid across the warped highway. Civilians screamed as their vehicles tilted dangerously. All Might blurred forward, wind whipping past him as he darted from car to car, saving people one-handed without slowing down. Captain, you're making this old man look quick, All Might called with a grin. Maybe try keeping up. HMPH. Captain Celebrity huffed, clearly offended, and surged forward again, blitzing through the final earth pillars. With a final burst of speed, he shot straight through the side of the villain's car as it tried to escape, tearing off the door and grabbing the man by the collar dangling in Captain Celebrity's grasp like a naughty puppy. The American hero hovered above the street, smug. All in a day's work, he said, turning toward the student's grin and presenting the villain like a prize. Anyone want to add, assisted a legend, to their resume? Bakugo didn't wait for permission. Hell yeah, he shouted, detonating toward the villain with a gleeful snarl. Die. A restrained explosion erupted on impact, enough to knock the villain unconscious without killing him. He crumpled like a ragdoll as Bakugo landed with a cocky smirk. The class coughed and waved their hands through the thick smoke cloud left behind by Bakugo's explosive takedown. Captain Celebrity fanned the air dramatically with his hand as he floated down. Woof. Talk about overkill, he said. Not bad, kid, but maybe next time leave some of the villain's face for his mug shot. Shut up, Bakugo snapped, crossing his arms. He's lucky I held back. As the police swarmed in and began cuffing the dazed villain, All Might stepped forward, raising a hand for attention. Now then, this brings us to an important lesson, he boomed, his usual cheerful authority returning. As pro-heroes, your duty doesn't end when the villain is subdued. You must remain at the scene until authorities arrive, especially to hand over the suspect and provide incident details. Leaving without doing so not only risks legal trouble but endangers civilians. He gave a thumbs up toward the officers. So your job doesn't end when the fight does. Mina raised her hand, still coughing a little. So we can't, leave a note or something. You know, from your friendly neighborhood Pinky. And bounce. Captain Celebrity chuckled. Now that's branding. I like her. Several students laughed. Zero gave Mina a thumbs up while Kaminari muttered, that'd be kind of cool, actually. All Might chuckled, too, but shook his head. No matter how cool it may seem, the law is the law. Leaving a villain behind even unconscious without ensuring the proper handoff to police could result in unintended consequences. The authorities need a rundown of the quirk involved, potential accomplices, property damage. Blah blah. He trailed off and gave a sheepish grin. Quote. Yes, I know it's boring, but this is the paperwork part your internships warned you about. A few students groaned in recognition while others nodded in resigned understanding. Bakugo raised his hand, clearly annoyed. Then why don't you wait around for the damn cops? He thought of all the videos he watched of All Might. I've seen you take out villains and jump to the next like it's a side quest. You don't stick around for the pigs. All Might paused, rubbing the back of his neck awkwardly. Ah, well, that may have caused issues on occasion. I have had to file reports after the fact. Many reports. More than I'd like to admit. All Might cleared his throat. Ahem. In hindsight, that wasn't always the best approach. Those were special circumstances. Don't take my mistakes as a precedent. You're telling us not to do what you still do, Suyu said flatly. All Might rubbed the back of his neck, looking sheepish. Yes, well, even I had to learn the hard way. Which is why you all will be better. HMPH. I don't see why we gotta wait for the damn cops, Bakugo muttered, crossing his arms. If I keep moving, I can blast another villain before he pulls more crap. All Might gave a solemn nod. I used to think the same, young Bakugo. But, sometimes, villains I thought were down got back up. Or a missed detail led to them walking free in court. Captain Celebrity nodded emphatically, pointing a finger skyward with his usual dramatic flair. Exactly. Happens more than you'd think, kid. One sloppy arrest, one missed detail, and boom, villains walking free in a week with their lawyer's business card. And guess whose face ends up plastered across every newspaper next to the word, incompetent? Yours. Kaminari chimed in innocently. You bet it's. Wait, hey. Captain Celebrity protested as several students snickered. That's not what I meant. The class burst out laughing, and even Todoroki cracked a tiny smile from the background. Still, All Might added, regaining the class's attention. It's part of your duty. You must wait for the police. Not just to pass the baton, but to ensure everything is done by the book. As the pros continued giving statements to the police, the class clustered up. Some chatted while others took notes or watched the procedures with interest. As the class continued watching the pros coordinate with the police below, Uraraka turned thoughtfully to where Midoriya should be standing. Wow, Dekiru-kun, I never really thought about all those behind-the-scenes details. Hero work really is non-stop, isn't it? There's so much more to consider than just. She paused, noticing the lack of response. Dekiru-kun. She spun around. What? Dekiru, where'd you go? Her voice caught the attention of the nearby girls Yaoyorozu, Suyu, and Jiro, who all looked around. Sure enough, Midoriya was missing. Iida looked around with concern. Midoriya, this isn't the time to wander off. All Might turned, hearing the chatter. Midoriya, he echoed. Suddenly whoosh, a strong wind burst past them, ruffling hair group nearly blowing off Kanoko's mushroom hat, and in a split second, a flash of green light sparked near Ochako. Whoa. She stumbled back as Izuku reappeared like he'd never left. Dekiru, where'd you go? Ochako asked, now more concerned than surprised. I was just. Bathroom break, Izuku mumbled awkwardly, scratching his cheek. Most of the class raised a brow, unconvinced but shrugged it off. As the commotion died down, Izuku subtly checked his phone, glancing at a private app displaying several markers on a map, each one marking potential doppelganger sightings. The lesson continued across the city as All Might and Captain Celebrity led the students on a patrol exercise, giving pointers and narrating the ins and outs of hero surveillance and response. The patrol exercise continued as All Might and Captain Celebrity led the students through the city streets, explaining surveillance techniques and proper hero response protocols. However, several sharp-eyed students began noticing a pattern. Jiro's earphone jacks twitched as she caught the faint sound of rushing wind. She glanced around just in time to see the barest hint of a blue blur streak across a nearby rooftop before vanishing. Did anyone else see? She started, but Izuku was suddenly walking beside Ochako again, hands in his pockets like he'd never left. See what? Izuku asked innocently, though there was a slight flush to his cheeks and his breathing seemed just a bit labored. It wasn't just her, of course. Yui and Yanagi cocked an eyebrow as it happened again, Izuku gone the moment Captain Celebrity lunged forward to stop a purse snatcher. Seconds later, a barely visible blue streak zipped between buildings in the distance before another green flash occurred behind a food cart. Izuku casually stepped out from behind it, rejoining the group. That's the third time, Itsuka whispered. Iida, Momo, and Todoroki noticed it, too. They all exchanged looks, subtle nods passing between them. And just as Izuku reappeared next to Ochako again with a gust of wind. Where'd you go this time? Ochako asked with a raised brow, her voice light but suspicious. Bathroom again. Izuku said quickly, rubbing the back of his neck. Kyoka arched a brow. That's the fourth bathroom break. Everything okay? Momo asked casually, though her tone carried clear scrutiny. Before Izuku could stammer out a reply, Setsuna suddenly raised her hand. All Might. All Might paused mid-sentence and turned. Yes, Miss Tokage. Any chance we could make a quick stop at Tiger's Den Sushi? She asked. All this walking around's got my stomach staging a protest. Kyoka smirked, clutching her stomach. She's not kidding. I think my ribs just growled at me. Ooh, I'm starving. Mina groaned, slumping against Toru. Same here, Toru chimed. I might faint if I don't eat something soft and fluffy soon. Iida cleared his throat, adjusting his glasses. Proper nourishment is vital to maintain mental focus and physical stamina. I second the request. Even Todoroki nodded. I could eat. All Might blinked, looking at Captain Celebrity, who shrugged. We didn't schedule a break, the American hero muttered, but I could go for a burger roll. Everyone nodded in agreement. Captain Celebrity and All Might exchanged uncertain glances before All Might gave a soft cough, subtly wiping a small splatter of blood from his hand. All Might masked a smile. Yes, well, I suppose a short meal break won't hurt. Yes, the group cheered in unison. As the group arrived at a bustling food court popular with students, the air was filled with sizzling aromas and the sound of chatter. Dozens of vendors lined the area, offering everything from ramen to takoyaki to piping hot katsudon. Everyone immediately began splitting off toward their favorite stalls, stomachs growling with anticipation. Izuku lingered near the edge of the food court, glancing around nervously. He brought the Omnitrix up to his face and pressed the button. The dial popped up with a soft click, and he began to rotate it carefully. Just as he raised his hand to slam the dial down, "Katya!" Mina's voice rang out, startling him. "Ga!" Izuku yelped, quickly lowering his hand. Before he could fumble out an excuse, a pair of arms looped through his Setsuna on one side, Toru on the other. "Where do you think you're sneaking off to, Midori?" Toru said sweetly, her voice teasing yet suspiciously knowing. "Why, you girls are surprisingly strong," Izuku muttered, flustered as they dragged him toward a large table where several of their classmates had already started to gather. Iida, Itsuka, Yui, Abara, Todoroki, and a few others were already seated, chatting and scanning menus. As Izuku was plopped down in a seat, all eyes turned to him. He felt the heat of their stares and chuckled nervously. So, what's everyone thinking of ordering? he asked, trying to deflect. Kyoka raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. Forget the food for a sec, Green. What's with all the Houdini act? Huh, don't. Huh, me. Kyoka leaned in. You keep vanishing. 1 minute, we're watching All Might and that blonde idiot mop up a mugger. The next you're just gone. Then you pop back in like it's nothing. Please don't tell me you're sneaking off to do vigilante work again, Suyu said flatly, staring at him with those wide, unreadable eyes. You don't have a license. You know that. If the police or the commission catch you doing hero work again, you're so getting arrested, Mina cut in with a snort. I mean, you're basically asking for handcuffs. Though honestly, she side-eyed him. Wouldn't be your worst look. Mina. Itsuka shot her a look. Mina raised both hands in defense, snickering. Kidding, kidding. Itsuka turned back to Izuku with a sigh. Seriously though, Izuku, I get that you want to help people, but this is dangerous. I told you it wasn't me. Izuku suddenly snapped louder than he intended. His voice cracked slightly with frustration as the table went silent. Several people turned their heads from nearby tables. Izuku winced, then lowered his voice. But it wasn't me. I was with Abara that whole afternoon. I didn't fight any Nomu. I didn't blow up half of Koto Ward. That wasn't me. Honest, I wouldn't lie to any of you, not about this. The group glanced toward Abara, who nodded silently in confirmation. Silence settled over the group. The girls glanced at each other, and Iida adjusted his glasses awkwardly before finally clearing his throat. That might clear you for that incident, but it doesn't explain why you keep disappearing since we got to Shibuya. Yui tilted her head. Were you using fast track? Izuku hesitated, then nodded. Yeah, I've been using fast track to track down the places where my doppelganger appeared. Where he fought those Nomu. The group collectively blinked. That's 2 hours away, even by train, Ochako said, eyes wide. Momo frowned, calculating in her head. Shibuya to Fukazawa district. That's almost a full prefecture. Closer to 2.5 if you count the return trip, Iida added. Izuku scratched the back of his head. Fast track makes it doable. I just had to be careful not to be seen. Wait. Itsuka's eyes narrowed. You went back to that crime scene. Where did those Nomu attacked? Well, your copycat did. Izuku nodded as Iida sighed. Midoriya, well, I understand your intent, but it's reckless. There were active villains there. What were you thinking? Izuku let out a shaky breath. I don't know. I thought maybe I could find something. A clue, a sign, I don't know anything to prove it wasn't me. Or maybe find him. I can't just do nothing while someone's out there wearing my face and doing stuff I'm getting blamed for. The table fell quiet. Even Manoma, who had been eavesdropping from the next booth, didn't chime in. The weight in Izuku's voice was heavy, and the guilt on some of their faces said they hadn't realized how hard he was taking this. Izuku, Itsuka finally said, sighing as she leaned on the table. Okay, if this is serious and clearly it is, then you're not doing it alone. We're helping you, Kyoka added, more gently this time. You helped save a bunch of us from Ghost Freak. And even before that, you've always had our backs, Mina said with a wink. Now we've got yours. Abara nodded, folding her hands. We believe you. We do, Momo added firmly. Izuku's eyes welled up with tears, then suddenly burst into twin waterfalls as he threw his hands up in the air. Thank you, Guys. He sobbed dramatically, snot threatening to join the mix. The tears launched through the air in perfect arcs, completely drenching half the table and sending several students scrambling backward with surprised yelps. Gah, I'm soaked, Mina shrieked, wringing out her pink hair. My uniform. Yaoyorozu gasped, trying to shield herself with a hastily created umbrella. Pull yourself together, man. Iida cried, fussing with his glasses as he handed over a full stack of tissues. Get it together, man, Kaminari muttered, handing him a napkin. You're gonna short out someone's phone at this rate. So, Iida clapped his hands once, adjusting his glasses. Since this has become a class effort, we need a plan. How are we going to track down this doppelganger? He's got Midoriya's speed and transformations, Mushroom Girl pointed out quietly. That's not exactly someone we can just corner in an alley. Shroom. Plus, Todoroki added thoughtfully, If he's been impersonating you this long without being caught, he's clearly intelligent and careful. Or even find, if he doesn't want to be found, Itsuka added, arms crossed. He's got the skills to escape 10 Nomus. Holding him down won't be easy. Then, a loud, over-exaggerated sigh cut through the group. Fine, I'll help, Manoma said, dramatically stepping forward as though the burden of heroism had just fallen squarely on his shoulders. No need to beg. Everyone stared at him, collectively confused. No one asked, Kyoka muttered flatly. I heard pleading in your silence, Manoma replied with a smug grin. Besides, clearly you're all floundering without proper leadership. He leaned back in his chair, folding his arms smugly. Now, how do we find this so-called doppelganger? Let's make this fun, pretend it's really Midoriya running around out there. Iida, what would you do to track him? Iida adjusted his glasses thoughtfully. Well, logically, I'd attempt to track his phone. Maybe even consult city surveillance. Bzzzt. Manoma suddenly blurted, mimicking a buzzer sound. Wrong. Iida frowned. But those. The correct answer. Manoma cut in, standing just enough to gesture dramatically, is, you ask the public. A few of the students blinked in surprise. Social media, Manoma clarified, if someone's running around in alien form leveling city blocks, people are gonna post about it. Photos, videos, panicked, look at this freak. Posts goldmine. He tapped his phone. Lucky for you, I happen to have several accounts with sizable followings. My fan clubs plural are, quite enthusiastic. Manoma suddenly slung an arm around Izuku's shoulders, yanking him slightly into frame as he raised his phone in selfie mode. Izuku blinked, eyes going wide when he realized Manoma had launched a livestream, his screen filled with fluttering Vikvok comments. Greetings, my dazzling, loyal followers, Manoma announced, posing with his usual smirk. Today, we have a very special challenge featuring none other than your fan favorite, Midoriya Izuku, aka Dekiru 10. The comments exploded instantly. Turn into the crystal guy. No, the crystal form. Tell him to turn into the one with fire. Bro, go ghost and freeze something. Loudly crying ice. Dekiru notice me. Izuku blinked rapidly, caught like a deer in the digital headlights. Wait, what is this? Manoma's eye twitched at the flood of attention not directed at him, but he quickly masked it with a bright, camera-ready smile. He cleared his throat dramatically. Ahem. As I was saying, I, Nito Manoma, am here with the ever-elusive and mysterious alien boy himself, Dekiru 10. He thumbed over to Izuku, who flinched as if Manoma had just accused him of something illegal. We are currently in the midst of a training lesson, very hush-hush, very top tier. He gestured dramatically toward Izuku. In this little exercise, this slippery menace here, he gave Izuku a light shake, as our villain for the day. Hiding somewhere in the city, plotting evil things, no doubt. Hey, I'm not plotting anything. Izuku flailed a little, but Manoma's grip stayed firm. We've been tasked with tracking him down and apprehending him before he causes more chaos. So, to all my loyal followers, this is where you come in. Yes, you watching from your couches and gamer chairs get to be part of it. In the next 5 minutes, we need all eyes on the streets. You'll know it's him, he'll be in one of his many flashy forms. Don't disappoint me. He lowered the phone for a second, muttering to Izuku, now, Midoriya, you need to head out into the city so our viewers know you're actually out there. Can't have them thinking this is fake, right? Wait, what? But I just got comfortable, Izuku protested. Go, just walk around the corner and out of sight. Manoma insisted, practically pushing him. Make it look convincing. Wave goodbye to the camera. Izuku, looking thoroughly confused and reluctant, gave an awkward wave to Manoma's phone. Bye everyone. I guess I'm going to hide now. There he goes, Manoma announced proudly as Izuku disappeared around the corner. Now the real hunt begins. Remember everyone, Dekiru 10 is somewhere out there in the city using his amazing alien powers. Be the first to spot him and tag me. Manoma ended the livestream with a satisfied smirk, slipping his phone back into his pocket. Okay, so now what? Ochako asked, looking toward where Izuku had just left. Now, we wait, Manoma replied, resting back in his seat like a mastermind in a drama. If your charming little double is still wandering around out there, and then we'll know exactly where the fake is, Todoroki observed with understanding. Someone's bound to spot the doppelganger and think it's the real Midoriya, Jiro added, looking grudgingly impressed. I hate how clever this actually is. A remarkably efficient use of civilian surveillance networks, Iida admitted, adjusting his glasses. I must acknowledge, Manoma, that was genuinely strategic thinking. Manoma preened under the rare praise from Class A. With that resolved, the group finally began to relax, turning their attention to actually ordering food. Just then, Izuku reappeared at their table, sliding back into his seat. So, do I just wait here now, or... About an hour had passed, and the students returned to their patrol. Captain Celebrity was already flying ahead, loudly narrating his exploits for anyone within a block to hear, while All Might had taken off earlier to scout a different sector. Izuku suspected to reserve his time limit. Beast. Manoma jolted as he quickly fished his phone from his pocket, brows knitting as he stared at the screen. Kitty 457. He muttered, unlocking the message. The message loaded, and his eyes widened in disbelief. His eyes widened. No way. A blurry photo popped up taken from street level, angled up toward a towering skyscraper. Perched near the edge of the roof was a familiar insectoid silhouette. Even with the poor quality, it was unmistakable. Stinkfly, Manoma muttered. Without a word, he turned the screen toward Itsuka and Yui. Both girls leaned in and froze. Izuku. They gasped in unison. Captain Celebrity, mid-rant about his latest dazzling interview in New York Beat, didn't even register their sudden outburst as they grabbed Izuku by the arm and tugged him aside, away from the others. What's wrong? Izuku began but stopped cold when he saw the screen. Is that Stinkfly? He stammered, eyes wide in disbelief. Manoma nodded, folding his arms. Looks like your evil twin does exist after all. Yui shot him a sharp glare. I mean, as if there was ever any doubt, of course. He added quickly, who could possibly mistake our law-abiding Midoriya for some vigilante supervillain? Anyway, the tag on the post says it's near Yakub Ward. Where was this taken? Izuku asked. Yakub Ward, Manoma replied. That's a solid 2 to 3 hours by bullet train from here, Izuku muttered, but if I go fast track, I'll be there in under 2 minutes. He didn't waste another second. He pressed the Omnitrix's button, and the dial sprang to life with a flash of green. He began scrolling through forms. But before he could slam it down, a firm hand grabbed his wrist. He turned and froze. Ochako stood in front of him, brown eyes locked onto his. I'm coming with you. Her tone left no room for argument. This guy probably has all your forms, and I don't think you should go at this alone. Izuku felt his chest tighten, heart thudding faster than he'd like to admit. I'm not sure that's a good idea. Whether you like it or not, she cut in, her cheeks dusted with pink. I'm coming with you. You're my. She looked down for half a second before forcing the word out. Friend. And I'm not letting you go face this guy alone. There was something in the way she said friend, the pause, the blush that made Izuku's thoughts trip over themselves. He nodded, a shy smile forming. Okay, I'd like that. From nearby, Toru had been watching the exchange with growing tension, her hands clenched at her sides. With forced cheerfulness that didn't quite mask her feelings, she suddenly stepped forward and practically shoved Shoto between the two of them. Wow, you two are so in sync. But, oh, hey, Todoroki, she said with exaggerated brightness. You're super strong and level-headed. You wouldn't mind going with them too, would you? You know, for extra backup and strategic thinking and all that. Shoto blinked as he suddenly found himself sandwiched between a flustered Midoriya and a red-faced Ochako. Okay, he said simply. Izuku gave a nervous smile, glancing between Ochako, Shoto, and the larger-than-life pro-hero. But how exactly are you guys going to keep Captain Celebrity distracted? He's probably gonna notice 3 students suddenly missing. Mina cracked her knuckles with a grin while Setsuna casually rolled her neck, a smirk tugging at her lips. Please, Mina said with mock offense, this is our specialty. Setsuna nodded knowingly. Watch and learn, Midori. The two girls sauntered toward Captain Celebrity, their expressions instantly shifting into wide-eyed, picture-perfect charm. Ooh, Captain Celebrity, Mina cooed, clasping her hands like an adoring fan, could you please tell us all about your greatest adventures? You know, hero to hero in training. Setsuna leaned in with a sway of her hips, her voice dripping with curiosity. Especially that time in Naruhata, when you held up that building all by yourself. You have to tell us all about it. Oh ho ho. Well, if you insist. Captain Celebrity's chest puffed as he launched into his favorite topic, himself. Izuku seized the moment, pressing the Omnitrix's button with a click as the dial popped up. He spun it with quick, practiced turns before slamming it down. In a flash of emerald light, Fast Track stood where Izuku had been, tail twitching with anticipation. Hang on, Fast Track said, scooping up Ochako and Shoto with ease. We'll be back before anyone notices. Split second later whoosh. They vanished in a gust of wind, the air snapping where they had been. Back near Captain Celebrity, Mina and Setsuna exchanged the tiniest victorious glance before turning their attention back to the bragging pro, plastering on their most innocent smiles. A streak of blue tore through Jakku City, weaving between cars and pedestrians in a blur. Fast Track skidded to a stop in front of the tall, weathered building where Stinkfly had been spotted. This is the place, he said, setting Ochako and Shoto down with a light bounce. Shoto's breath puffed in the cool air as he scanned the street, eyes narrowing at the alleys and rooftops. Ochako turned slowly, looking up toward the higher floors as if she might catch a glimpse of him. Without warning, Fast Track zipped off, circling the perimeter in seconds before reappearing right in front of them. Nope, nothing, not even a whiff of bug guts, he muttered. Before either of them could respond, he was gone again, another rush of wind lifting Ochako's hair and rustling Shoto's bangs. He reappeared a second later. Still nothing, he said, just a whole lot of empty alleys and one very questionable hot dog cart. Then, with a frustrated kick, he sent an empty can clattering down the street. Shoto glanced at his friend, noting the frustration in Fast Track's tone. Why don't we take a closer look on foot? We might catch something you missed zipping past. Ochako brightened. Yeah, that building looks abandoned. If your double was here, he might have left a trail or something. Fast Track let out an exasperated sigh, but before either of them could take a step, he scooped them up and whooshed into the building. Dust swirled in their wake as they landed inside. The moment they entered, Shoto and Ochako both paused, sniffing the air. Their noses wrinkled, and they quickly clamped their hands over their faces. HHHHK. Ochako gagged. Fast Track senses immediately picked up the odor as well as his face scrunched up in disgust. Oh wow, that's really awful. What is that? That, Shoto said, his heterochromatic eyes watering as he tried to breathe through his mouth, is exactly what Stinkfly smells like. Ochako nodded vigorously while still covering her nose. Like rotting garbage mixed with something even worse. Fast Track's alien eyes widened in genuine shock and dismay. Wait, that's what I smell like when I'm Stinkfly. He looked absolutely mortified. Yes, Fast Track winced. He'd never noticed before, how could he, when he was the one in the alien body. He then remembered what All Might had once told him about the form. You smelled like hot garbage and dirty gym socks, All Might had said, coughing into his hand with a wince. That's why All Might called it Stinkfly, and the name sorta stuck. At the time, he hadn't realized how bad it really was, until now. Fast Track wrinkled his nose. Yeah, if that's what Stinkfly smells like, he's gotta be close. The group hustled up a flight of creaky stairs, but Fast Track was already gone in a streak of blue, zipping through hallways and poking his head into every room like a jittery ferret on caffeine. His head snapped left, right, up, down, always moving until he skidded to a sudden stop in a dim corner room. A dusty black bag sat against the wall. He eyed it, glanced around suspiciously, then called out, "Guys! I found something." Really? Ochako's voice carried down the hall, moments before Fast Track whooshed back into view. The gust from his speed whipped their hair again, but by now, both she and Shoto had just accepted the windswept look. Yeah, Fast Track said, holding up the bag. He set it down and tugged it open. A shuffle of paper spilled out, photographs scattering across the floor like oversized playing cards. "Whoa," Fast Track muttered. The pictures were mostly of pro heroes, each with a red circle drawn around their faces. A few were of people none of them recognized. "These are all pros?" Shoto asked, frowning as he picked up one of Endeavor. "And villains," Ochako added, recognition flashing across her face as she held up another. "That guy was on the news last week." Fast Track lifted another photo, tilting his head. "Some are circled, some aren't. It's like there's some kind of list." Shoto's eyes narrowed. "A hit list." Fast Track crouched lower, flipping one of the pictures over. "You think half these heroes aren't even top 10 material, but they're quirks. Serious heavy hitters. Someone's cherry-picking power over popularity." Ochako sifted through the pile until one caught her eye. Guys, look at this." They leaned in. The photograph showed a tall, pale man on a rooftop at night, his skin mottled with what looked like deep purple burn scars, stapled crudely together. Jagged black hair stuck up in messy spikes, his turquoise eyes glinting like cold fire. A blonde girl walked beside him. Standing beside him was a short blonde girl, both of them walking through a street market. Fast Track zipped over in a blur, snatching it gently from her hand before Shoto leaned in. Fast Track tilted his head. "Guy looks like he went a couple rounds with a stapler and lost." Ochako flipped the photo over. In messy, jagged handwriting on the back, it read, "Greater than, blue flames. Perfect edition. Staying somewhere in Jaku City with blonde girl. Time to make him pay for having what I need." "Wait," Fast Track said suddenly, "this note says he's here in Jaku City. That means whoever's impersonating me is definitely still in the area. We can actually track him down." Shoto nodded. "If our imposter is hunting this person locally, we might be able to find him before he strikes." Fast Track let the picture fall back onto the pile, his voice low. "Then we better move fast." Before they could say anything else, Ochako's phone buzzed sharply in her pocket. She glanced at the screen, eyes widening. "Oh crap, Yaoyorozu says we need to get back now. He's starting to notice we're gone." Shoto's brow furrowed. "Already? Guess Mina and Setsuna can't keep Captain Celebrity busy forever," Ochako said with a nervous laugh, tucking the phone away. Fast Track smirked faintly under his breath. "All right, buckle up, slowpokes." In one smooth motion, he scooped both of them up like they weighed nothing and zipped toward the exit. Shoto snagged the bag on the way out, his gaze lingering on the photo of the scarred man for just a moment longer. He didn't know why, but something about that patchwork face tugged at his memory. As they prepared to leave, Fast Track let green lightning crackle around his already enhanced Form 1 for all, combining with his alien speed to create an almost impossible velocity. They became nothing more than a blue-green blur as they zipped out of the abandoned building and raced back through the city streets. They skidded to a halt just in time to see Captain Celebrity clocking a would-be mugger, then as struck heroic pose for any nearby cameras. "And that, my young heroes in training," Captain Celebrity announced loudly, "is how a real professional handles street-level crime." With a familiar green flash, Fast Track transformed back into Izuku, who was breathing heavily. The three of them quickly tried to blend back into the group as naturally as possible. Did we, miss anything?" Izuku asked between breaths. A few meters away, Mina and Setsuna were still locked on Captain Celebrity, who was bathing in the fake, gushing over Captain Celebrity with their best, adoring fan voices. "Oh, you were so amazing, Captain Celebrity. That punch was like bam, straight out of a movie," Mina said, clasping her hands dramatically. "Seriously, the way you spun before hitting that villain. Ooh, so stylish," Setsuna added, even giving a little twirl for emphasis. Inside, she was screaming, "Mophead, you owe me big time for this." When the two girls spotted Izuku, Shoto, and Ochako returning, they both exhaled in visible relief like they'd just been handed a lifeline. Once Captain Celebrity moved on to pose for more photos with bystanders, Mina and Setsuna immediately dropped their exhausting performance. "Well, that was quite the experience," Mina said with forced enthusiasm. Setsuna stretched her arms above her head with relief. "Yeah, absolutely riveting. But anyway, we should probably regroup with everyone else." Captain Celebrity gave them a confident wink and a thumbs up before strutting off to sign autographs, leaving the girls free to hurry back to their classmates. As soon as they were out of earshot, Mina's facade completely dropped. Okay. Spill. Did you guys actually find anything useful? Shoto nodded seriously, adjusting the black bag on his shoulder. We discovered some photographs, both heroes and what appear to be villains. All marked in a very concerning way. Izuku straightened up. Sorry we took so long. The search ended up being more complicated than I expected. Mina grinned and playfully nudged his shoulder. Hey. No worries Midori. Though I'm definitely cashing in some major favor points after that Oscar-worthy performance back there. Setsuna made an exaggerated gagging motion. I think I lost years off my life having to fangirl over that walking ego trip. I've never felt more like a cringy superfan in my entire existence. You three seriously owe us dinner or something after that torture session. Momo stepped forward and carefully took the bag from Shoto. This is quite disturbing, she murmured, then paused as one particular image caught her attention. Wait, Aizawa-sensei is in here too. What, really? Ochako asked, moving closer to get a better look. The other girls from both Class A and B gathered around curiously as Momo held up a slightly blurry photo of their homeroom teacher. On the back, scrawled in the same erratic handwriting, was a longer note. Erasure. Perfect for getting close to targets. But Uwa is crawling with heroes, too risky for now. Need to be patient. Once I have enough power, I'll take what's his and settle the score with dear old dad. That monster thinks he's so powerful with his collection. I'll show him what real power looks like. Izuku stared at the message, his brows furrowing in confusion as he read it again. Someone has serious daddy issues, Setsuna muttered, peering over his shoulder. Kanoko's voice was barely a whisper. I thought this person was only going after the League of Villains, but this sounds like they're targeting heroes too, shroom. Momo adjusted her grip on the photos, her expression growing more troubled. Based on these notes, our impostor appears to have a much broader agenda than we initially assumed. Todoroki's eyes remained fixed on the photograph of his father. We need to inform Aizawa-sensei immediately. Absolutely, Iida declared, his hands chopping through the air. Anyone capable of replicating Midoriya's Omnitrix abilities represents an extreme danger to both heroes and civilians alike. Wait. She stammered, her voice growing smaller. If there's someone else who can transform into the same aliens as Midoriya-kun, doesn't that mean? The realization hit the group like a physical blow. Ochako's face went white. Oh no. Oh no. There's another Omnitrix, Momo breathed, the color draining from her cheeks. Setsuna's usual cocky demeanor evaporated. You're telling me there are two of those things running around? That's impossible, right? Ochako asked, her voice shaking slightly. I mean, where would someone even get another one? Izuku's hand instinctively moved to his own Omnitrix, the device suddenly feeling heavier on his wrist. His voice came out as barely a whisper. I don't want to think about what that means. The implications were staggering. If there was another Omnitrix user, one who clearly had malicious intent, then everything they thought they knew about the device's rarity had been wrong. After a few more tense minutes of discussion, the group reluctantly rejoined Captain Celebrity's tour. The American hero continued leading them through the city, demonstrating proper patrol techniques and civilian interaction protocols. But Izuku found it increasingly difficult to focus on the lesson. Captain Celebrity's tendency to showboat was grating on his nerves more than usual. Every time they encountered a minor incident, a jaywalker, a small fender bender, even helping an elderly woman with her groceries, the man somehow managed to position himself perfectly for any nearby cameras or phone recordings. And that, my young apprentices, Captain Celebrity announced after spending 5 full minutes posing with a rescued cat, is how you turn every heroic moment into a brand-building opportunity. After Captain Celebrity delivered his final grandiose speech about being the face of heroism, and All Might offered more practical advice about teamwork and responsibility, the exhausted students trudged back to their buses. 3 days later, a small group of students walked through the quieter residential streets of Jaku City, all dressed in casual civilian clothes to avoid drawing attention. Izuku adjusted his plain hoodie nervously, glancing around at his companions Ochako, Iida, Momo, Todoroki, and Kyoka had all insisted on coming despite the risks. They weren't alone in the city. Scattered throughout different districts, other small groups of Class A and B students were conducting their own searches. Mostly, the girls from both classes, but even some of the boys had volunteered. Kirishima and Tetsu, as well as Kaminari, was reluctantly paired with Manoma near the entertainment district. "I still can't believe we're doing this," Momo muttered, tugging at her jacket. "We don't have provisional licenses yet, and if we run into actual villains. And I can't believe half our class signed up for this," Iida cut in, his tone sharp. "We should have left it to the professionals." "We tried," Todoroki replied evenly. "When you reported it to Aizawa-sensei, what did he say?" Iida's lips pressed thin. "That they'd look into it, and that we should stay out of it. But that was 3 days ago, and nothing's happened." "Exactly," Ochako said, stepping closer to Izuku. "You know Dekiru would have come here alone if we hadn't insisted. At least this way, we can watch each other's backs." "That's not the point," Iida argued. "Like when you ran off to Hosu after the hero killer?" Kyoka asked flatly. "Real proper procedure there, Iida." He flushed. "That was different. We're being an idiot," Todoroki finished bluntly. "Just like we might be now. But sometimes, doing the right thing means breaking a few rules." Ochako glanced at Izuku, noticing the guilt in his hunched shoulders. "Hey, we're all here because we want to help. Even if some of us are nervous about getting in trouble." "I know," Izuku said quietly. "I just can't sit still while someone with my face is out there. Especially if they're targeting Aizawa-sensei or other heroes. But I didn't mean for so many people to get involved." Kyoka bumped his shoulder, her usual deadpan softening. "Doesn't matter. We'd have shown up anyway. Besides," Ochako added, looking at Momo and Iida, "we're not doing hero work. We're just concerned citizens delivering a warning." "Completely different legal classification," Todoroki said. Momo sighed deeply, pushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "That's a very thin justification, Uraraka." But she looked at Izuku's determined expression, and her resolve wavered. "I suppose if we're just delivering a warning and leaving immediately." Izuku fidgeted with the sleeve of his hoodie. I really appreciate you guys coming with me. I know this isn't exactly safe, and if something goes wrong." "If something goes wrong, we handle it together," Ochako interrupted firmly, bumping his shoulder with hers. "That's what friends do, Dekiru." Iida adjusted his glasses with a heavy sigh. "While I maintain that this course of action is inadvisable, I cannot in good conscience allow Midoriya to pursue this alone. His track record for solo missions is concerning." "Hey," Izuku protested weakly. "He's not wrong," Todoroki added with dry amusement. "You do attract trouble, or trouble finds him," Jiro muttered. "Either way, safety in numbers seems like the smart play here." "And try telling Mina or Setsuna to stay behind when there's danger," Kyoka added. "Good luck with that." Kirishima called it a manly duty to protect friends, Todoroki said dryly. Tetsu immediately agreed, and after the Ghost Freak incident, Ochako said softly, "A lot of us aren't taking any chances." Izuku could only nod. For the next 3 hours, they methodically canvassed their assigned district. They showed the photograph to cafe owners, shop clerks, and pedestrians, but every interaction ended the same way, puzzled looks and apologetic shrugs. Nobody recognized the scarred man. Eventually, exhausted and discouraged, they ducked into a small cafe. The late afternoon sun streamed through the windows as they collapsed into a corner booth, ordering drinks and snacks. "How has nobody seen this guy?" Izuku groaned, letting his head drop onto the table. "He's not exactly forgettable." Jiro bit into her chocolate cupcake. "Right, you'd think a walking pincushion would stand out." Privately, Iida felt relieved by their lack of progress. No target meant no potential confrontation with a dangerous doppelganger. "Jiro," Izuku said hopefully, "please tell me your quirk picked up something useful." Her earphone jacks twitched as she listened, and then she shook her head. "Sorry, nothing helpful. Though, someone at that corner table is trying to sneak photos of us for social media clout." "That's not helpful at all." Izuku slumped in defeat. "Hey, at least we're photogenic," Jiro said with a wry smile. After finishing their drinks, the group resumed their search, walking through the increasingly crowded afternoon streets. So Izuku, Momo said thoughtfully, when you do find your doppelganger, what exactly do you intend to do? Izuku glanced at her. What do you mean? Well, all things considered, he might have an Omnitrix too, and from what we've seen. Momo paused, choosing her words carefully. She didn't want to say, he uses it better than you, as that would be unnecessarily harsh. He seems to have more experience with it. He can even transform from form to form seamlessly, something you've been working toward. Izuku was quiet for a moment as they walked. I guess, I'll have to call Aizawa-sensei first. And if he's not actually a bad guy, then I don't really know. The plumbers would probably have a better idea of what to do about another Omnitrix user. That's assuming he's willing to talk, Shoto added quietly. Someone building target lists doesn't usually want a peaceful conversation. Suddenly, Kyoka's jacks perked up and her expression turned serious. Guys, she said in a low voice, we're being followed. What? Izuku started but caught himself, not stopping or turning around. Momo quickly placed a steadying hand on Ochako's arm to prevent her from panicking and looking back. Shoto maintained his cool facade, while Ida's shoulders tensed slightly. Are you sure? Ochako asked nervously, her voice barely above a whisper. Kyoka casually gestured toward a side street. Let's take a little detour and see. She led them in a roundabout path, turning corners and doubling back through a few alleyways. After a few minutes, her frown deepened. Yeah, definitely being tailed. There's this weird, skipping pattern in the footsteps. Light, then heavier, then light again. Like someone's trying to match our pace but not doing a great job of it. Could it be the impostor? Momo asked, her voice tight with concern. Or just some creepy fan with a camera? Ochako suggested hopefully. Izuku's hand unconsciously moved toward his sleeve, where the Omnitrix was hidden. Should we try to lose them, or? No sudden moves, Iida whispered, his training kicking in. If it is the impostor, we don't want to provoke a confrontation in a crowded area. How about we split up? Shoto suggested, causing everyone to look at him in confusion. I don't know if you've seen horror movies, Todoroki, but splitting up never works out well, Kyoka said dryly. We split up, and whoever the person follows, the others circle around behind them. Then we block them from both ends, Shoto explained calmly. A pincer maneuver? Momo asked, and Shoto nodded. Izuku considered that could actually work. Iida looked directly at Izuku with concern. Remember what happened with the hero killer. Please refrain from transforming unless absolutely necessary, Midoriya. I understand, Izuku replied seriously. Momo, Kyoka, and Ochako all shifted closer to Izuku, clearly wanting to stay with him for protection. Midoriya, Uraraka, Jiro, and I will form one group, Momo decided, positioning herself near Izuku. Iida and Todoroki, you'll be the second team. The group split when they reached a busy intersection, using the crowd as cover to separate naturally. As Ochako, Momo, Kyoka, and Izuku walked quickly down a side street, Kyoka focused on the sounds behind them. As they walked, Kyoka kept her jacks extended slightly. I think she's still following us, she whispered. I could go big chill, phase through the ground, and freeze whoever it is, Izuku suggested quietly. No, we follow Todoroki's plan, Momo said firmly. This could just be an overeager fan. Kyoka nodded. Yeah, let's figure out who's been tailing us first. Probably just some creep hoping to get photos or autographs. You really think so? Ochako asked nervously. We did get pretty famous after the sports festival, Kyoka pointed out. And the whole hero killer thing made us even more recognizable. Momo sighed. It's possible. I've dealt with persistent admirers before. Her expression darkened slightly. Being from a wealthy family had given her experience with unwanted attention. After a few more minutes, they found a quieter area. Kyoka could hear Shoto and Ida's footsteps approaching from the opposite direction. The group stopped in what appeared to be a small dead-end alley. All right, whoever you are, we don't appreciate being followed, Izuku called out loudly, turning around with the others. The alley was empty. Kyoka blinked in surprise. They were right here. I'm sure of it. Todoroki appeared from around the corner with Iida, both looking confused. We definitely saw someone duck in here, Shoto confirmed. Did they give us the slip? Momo wondered aloud. The entire group jumped, spinning around to see a petite blonde girl with messy buns sitting casually on a fire escape ladder, smiling brightly down at them. Wow, that was fun. But I really don't like being cornered, the girl said cheerfully, as if they were old friends. The group immediately went on high alert, instinctively moving into defensive positions. You're the ones from that video with the hero killer, right? The girl continued, her yellow eyes gleaming with interest as she looked at each of them in turn. Why yes, we were there, Izuku said cautiously. Oh gosh, he really liked you, didn't he? The girl's smile widened, showing sharp canine teeth. The way you stood up to him even when all those pro-heroes were frozen with fear. Her gaze shifted to Ochako, and her expression became almost dreamy. And you? Ochako instinctively stepped back, bumping into Momo. The way you stopped him from moving was so amazing. It gave Green Boy here the perfect chance to do that scary ghost thing. Frost began forming on Shoto's left side as he exhaled a visible puff of cold air. Are you one of Stain's followers? The girl tilted her head with innocent curiosity. Stain? Oh no, I'm not really into his whole, fake hero, speech. Way too preachy for me. She giggled again. Then why are you following us? Iida demanded, his voice sharp with authority. The girl hummed thoughtfully, swaying slightly as if to music only she could hear. That depends. Why are you asking about my friend? The group exchanged confused glances. Wait, you know the guy in the photo? Shoto asked, raising an eyebrow. Momo whispered, it's possible she has information. That still doesn't explain why she's been stalking us. Kyoka said. So, the girl suddenly chirped, completely ignoring the question, are you two dating? The three girls, Kyoka, Momo, and Ochako, all turned bright red simultaneously. And no, we're not. Kyoka sputtered defensively, her face burning. We're just friends. Momo added quickly, trying to regain her composure. Just friends. There's absolutely nothing romantic happening here. Ochako blurted out. The girl blinked innocently, then her smile grew wider and more predatory. Oh my, I didn't even specify which two, and you're all so defensive. She clapped her hands together in delight. Wait. Her yellow eyes darted between the three flustered girls, watching their body language with keen interest. No way, she whispered, her eyes lighting up with pure excitement as she watched all three girls unconsciously glance toward the green-haired boy. Oh, she squealed, bouncing on her toes. Three beautiful girls all crushing on the same boy. How absolutely romantic. You must be super popular. Green eyes. Izuku's face turned crimson as he waved his hands frantically. Wait, you mean me? And no, that's not, we're not. So cute. The girl cooed, clasping her hands together dreamily. Todoroki, seemingly immune to the awkwardness, stepped forward and held up the photograph. What do you know about this man? The girl's expression immediately soured, and she made a disgusted face. Ugh, let's not talk about that creepy about Dobby right now, she said with a dismissive wave. I'd much rather hear about your love situation. So what's the deal? Are you all taking turns? Playing hard to get, ooh, or is it one of those dramatic, I saw him first, things? Dobby, everyone asked in unison, latching onto the name. Is that what he's called? Izuku asked urgently. The girl wagged her finger playfully. Nah, you answer my questions first, then maybe I'll help you find him. Izuku fidgeted uncomfortably. And no, nothing romantic is happening. But then he remembered Momo's confession from weeks ago, and his heart did a somersault. I mean, we're just, it's complicated. The girl leaned against a nearby fire escape with a dreamy expression. Why do people always hold back their feelings? Seems so constraining, don't you think? Her yellow eyes suddenly focused intensely on Ochako, and her cheeks flushed pink. You know, you were absolutely gorgeous in that Stain video. All that blood spattering on you when you fought so bravely, it was just beautiful. I'm sorry, what? Toga's gaze lingered, almost dreamy. You were so determined to protect him, and then, when the blood ran down your face, it was beautiful. It made my heart race. Her expression snapped into a bright, unsettling smile. Oh, I'm Himiko Toga, by the way. Huge fan, Uravity. The way you floated that villain and gave your boyfriend the perfect opening, so amazing. He's not my boyfriend, Ochako protested, though her blush suggested otherwise. Toga's eyes lit up even more. Ooh, so you're single then? That's perfect, she said happy. I really hope you're into girls too. What? I don't. Ochako stammered, her face turning redder than Kirishima's hair. Toga pouted. Ah, you're so cute when you're all blushy. Look at those rosy cheeks. Can you please just tell us where this Dabi person is? Momo asked desperately, trying to steer the conversation back on track. Toga gracefully slid down the fire escape, landing near the group with cat-like agility. Toga struck a thinking pose, one finger pressed to her lips. Okay, I can show you where the grumpy burn victim is hiding. She began circling the girls like a predator studying its prey. But first, you have to tell me all about your love story. Every juicy detail. Well, technically there are other girls from both classes involved too, Shoto said bluntly. Todoroki. The group shouted in mortified unison. Toga gasped so loudly it echoed off the alley walls. Oh my god, all those girls are after one boy. Her face turned bright red with excitement, though she kept glancing at Ochako. This is like something out of a romance manga. But wait, that means you have competition. Aren't you worried about losing him to one of the others? It's not like that. Ochako stammered. Toga giggled and suddenly slipped her arm through Ochako's, locking them together in that casual, intimate way couples did. Tell me everything. How did you all meet? When did you realize you liked him? Who made the first move? Does he know? Toga babbled excitedly, then leaned in closer to Ochako with a conspiratorial whisper. And more importantly, if things don't work out with him, would you maybe want to get some tea with me sometime? Ochako's brain seemed to short-circuit. What? Tea? I don't. Gee guys. Ochako yelped trying to pull back, but Toga just tightened the loop of her arm around hers. She doesn't seem dangerous, Todoroki observed with his usual bluntness. Just unusual. As long as she helps us find this Dabi person and warn him, it should be fine, right? The others weren't entirely convinced, but they had few alternatives if they wanted to complete their mission. The group continued walking through the winding streets, Toga practically skipping alongside them with boundless energy. Oh, I actually saw you guys at the train station earlier, looking around with that photo, Toga said cheerfully. I didn't say anything, I was too nervous. She's been following us since the train station. Todoroki thought, his expression remaining neutral despite his concern. Jiro was particularly taken aback. As someone who relied on her hearing quirk to detect threats, the fact that this girl had been tailing them for hours without her noticing was deeply unsettling. So, besides Ochako's adorable love life, Toga said with a dreamy sigh, it must be so nice to be able to openly care about people like that. You three are so lucky. What do you mean by that? Izuku asked, genuinely curious despite his growing wariness. Toga's smile faltered for just a moment, something almost vulnerable flickering in her yellow eyes before the cheerful mask returned. Oh, nothing important, just thinking out loud. So you guys fought the hero killer, she continued, quickly changing the subject. He must have considered you all to be true heroes, right? I thought you said you weren't interested in Stain's ideology, Kyoka pointed out suspiciously. Oh, I'm not, just curious about what makes someone like him tick, Toga hummed innocently. Yeah, he seemed to think we were real heroes, Izuku said carefully, not wanting to get into the complexity of that encounter. Oh gosh, that must have been so terrifying, Toga exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with what seemed like genuine concern. But also kind of exciting, right? All that adrenaline, all that. It was mostly just scary, Ochako interrupted quietly. As they approached a more secluded area near an abandoned building, Toga's pace picked up slightly, her excitement seeming to grow. You know what I love most about moments like that, Toga continued, her voice taking on a dreamy quality. When everything gets really intense, and people start bleeding, and you can see who they really are underneath. The casual way she mentioned blood made everyone slightly uncomfortable, but Izuku's danger sense remained quiet. Does that have something to do with your quirk? Izuku asked, trying to understand her fixation. It's kind of vampiric, I use blood. You know, I wanna drink it. She even curled her hands like claws and did a goofy imitation of Dracula. Blah, that actually eased the tension for a moment. Even Kyoka rolled her eyes instead of snapping. Then Toga's voice dipped into something sweeter and sharper. Of course, before I drink it, I like to cut you up a little first. Makes the taste better. Everyone froze as they climbed up the stairs. There's something so beautiful about watching someone's face when the knife goes in, you know. The way their eyes widen, the little gasp they make. Everyone froze mid-step. The cheerful, almost innocent way she described something so violent sent ice through their veins. Ochako jerked her arm away from Toga, stumbling backward into Momo. You what? Oh, don't look at me like that. Toga pouted, twirling her knife playfully. I'm not going to hurt you guys. I like you too much. Besides, her yellow eyes gleamed as she looked at Ochako. I want to be friends first. The cutting comes later, once we really get to know each other. Shoto's left side immediately began frosting over. We need to leave, now. But we're almost there. Toga called out cheerfully as she skipped ahead, apparently oblivious to the horror on their faces. Dabi, I brought some friends to meet you. Her voice echoed through the abandoned building, and from somewhere above them came a low, everyone back away slowly as an irritated almost relaxed voice came through. What the hell, Toga? I told you not to bring anyone here. Oh, but you're gonna love them. Toga said. The man from the photograph descended the stairs, and Izuku felt his danger sense explode like a knife stabbing into his skull. The temperature in the room seemed to spike immediately. Dabi was reasonably tall and pale, with a slim but somewhat muscular build. He looked to be in his early 20s, with distinctive patchwork skin held together by staples. His black hair was messy and unkempt, and most unsettling were his piercing turquoise eyes. Green, it might be time to go, hero, Kyoka whispered urgently. Izuku nodded slightly, his hand moving instinctively toward his sleeve where the Omnitrix was hidden. Dabi's cold gaze suddenly shot toward Shoto, studying him with an intensity that made everyone uncomfortable. There was something almost predatory in the way he looked at the dual-haired boy, like he was seeing something the others couldn't. The silence stretched on until Dabi suddenly let out a harsh laugh. Well, what do we have here? He folded his arms and leaned casually against the railing, but his posture remained tense and ready. So, he finally sent you, huh? The group exchanged bewildered glances. Sent us? Momo asked, clearly confused. Who sent us? Dabi's eyes narrowed slightly, studying their genuinely puzzled faces. Nobody sent you. We came here to warn you, Izuku said carefully, his hand subtly moving toward his sleeve. Now Dabi looked truly surprised, his casual demeanor cracking slightly. Warn me? About what? Someone's targeting you, Momo explained, pulling out the photograph. We found this among other pictures. You're marked as some kind of target. Dabi stared at the photo for a long moment, then let out a low chuckle. Well, that's unexpected. His gaze flicked back to Shoto, who was still looking at him with polite confusion rather than any recognition. And here I thought this was going to be a completely different kind of visit. And you came all this way just to tell me about it. How heroic of you. Do you have any idea who might want to hurt you? Iida asked. Could be a lot of people, Dabi replied vaguely. I'm not exactly popular in certain circles. His eyes lingered on Shoto again, this time with careful scrutiny. But I'm curious, why do you care what happens to some random guy you found in a photo? Because it's the right thing to do, Ochako said, though she stayed close to her friends. Dabi's lips curled into a cold smile. Ah, how thoughtful. But operating without licenses is pretty illegal, right? Thanks for the heads up, kiddos, but I can handle myself just fine. Ah, but I wanted to cut them up a little. Toga whined, pouting like a child denied candy. Don't mind her, Dabi said with practiced indifference, waving a dismissive hand. She's not exactly stable, but she's mostly harmless. Just don't make any sudden movements. The group exchanged uncertain glances, clearly not reassured by his casual attitude toward the knife-wielding girl. Look, thanks for the warning, but I'm not exactly some helpless. Oh, are you sure about that? A new voice echoed from above, causing everyone to flinch and snap their heads upward. What appeared to be a web line descended from the ceiling, and suddenly, as if emerging from camouflage, a figure materialized. Izuku, Ochako, Momo, Shoto, and Iida's eyes widened in shock as they recognized the form hanging upside down from the web. It was Spider Monkey, or at least, it looked like Spider Monkey. But something was different. The alien's movements seemed more predatory, and there was an unsettling gleam in its eyes that didn't belong there. Well, the impostor Spider Monkey said, dropping gracefully to the floor. Small sparks of electricity crackled around its form, something that definitely wasn't part of Spider Monkey's normal abilities. Looks like I found my next target. Dobby's casual demeanor evaporated instantly, blue flames flickering to life around his hands. And you are. Spider Monkey began to swing from his web string as lightning crackled around him like a violent storm. You have something I need. He screamed, his voice carrying that unhinged desperation that made everyone's skin crawl. And I'm taking it whether you like it or not. He launched himself toward Dobby like a daring missile. Dobby responded with a massive plume of blue flames, his usual smirk replaced by grim focus. Come and try it, Spider Freak. The collision created a massive shockwave that erupted through the abandoned building. Everyone covered their eyes as the blast sent them tumbling from the railings to the ground below. Izuku crashed into the wall, the air driven from his lungs while Ochako cried out as she tumbled across the floor, Momo rolling to shield her head with her arms. Shoto quickly recovered, his heterochromatic eyes widening as more blue flames erupted around them. He threw up an ice barrier to protect his friends from the heat and debris. I hate to say I told you so, Kyoka said dryly as the sounds of web slinging and explosive flames filled the building, but I definitely called this whole trouble finding us thing. Izuku scrambled to get a better look at the Omnitrix wielder as he swung between rusted chains and support beams, using both webs and the building's industrial remnants to stay mobile. Hey there, Crispy, Spider Monkey taunted, grabbing a broken piece of old conveyor belt machinery and hurling it at Dobby. Thanks for keeping my prize warm for me. Dobby melted the projectile midair with a concentrated blast of blue fire. Your prize. You've got some nerve, monkey boy. As the battle raged, Izuku squinted through the chaos and smoke. Something was off. As Impostor swung past a bank of shattered windows, and as he moved through a shaft of light, Izuku caught a clear glimpse of his chest. Wait, Izuku muttered, then his eyes widened in realization. Shoto noticed it too, his expression sharpening. There's no Omnitrix symbol on his chest. So how is he? The distant wail of sirens cut through their conversation, growing louder by the second. Time to go, hero, Izuku said grimly, pressing the button on his Omnitrix. The dial popped up with its familiar green glow, ready for transformation. The impostor's manic laughter echoed through the building as he swung from beam to beam, leaving scorch marks on the metal where his electricity touched. You can't stop me, none of you can. I'm gonna take everything, every power, every ability, until there's nothing left. Izuku quickly began to scroll through the Omnitrix as Momo placed a protective hand on his arm, flames roaring past them. Izuku, I know you want answers but... Momo looked conflicted. I think it's best we retreat. Transform and get the rest of us out of here safely. The flames only grew more intense, the building itself groaning under the assault. Creaking noises echoed through the structure as paint peeled from the walls in curling strips as the temperature spiked. Spider Monkey launched himself downward with a primal scream, his fist crackling with violent electricity as he smashed into the concrete floor. The impact created a crater, and a devastating shockwave erupted outward, completely obliterating Shoto's ice barrier and hurling the group like ragdolls into the wall. The impact drove the breath from their lungs. Ochako cried out as her shoulders slammed into exposed rebar. Ida's glasses flew off, clattering across the debris-strewn floor. Momo, blood trickling from a cut on her temple, desperately created a riot shield as chunks of burning debris rained down around them. No way, Izuku gasped, struggling to his feet despite his ribs screaming in protest. I have to find out who he is. And I can't just abandon those two to this nightmare. Izuku, think about this logically, Momo urged, her voice rising over the chaos. This impostor has been using your face to commit crimes. I'm sure Principal Nezu had to go through great lengths proving your innocence. But if you transform here, if you actually engage in vigilante activity. She gestured frantically at the battle raging around them. There won't be any plausible deniability this time. You'll actually be guilty of unauthorized quirk usage. The commission could expel you from UA, or worse. I understand where you're coming from, Midoriya, Shoto said, ice crystals forming around his right side, but I don't think engaging is the smart play here. Iida nodded gravely. The pros will be arriving soon, and we're already walking a tightrope after the hero killer incident. We can't afford another unsanctioned confrontation. Izuku looked down in frustration, his finger hovering over the Omnitrix dial. Suddenly, the spider monkey swung closer, sporting an unhinged grin as he dodged another blast of blue flames. Oh, seriously, you haven't figured it out yet, Izuku. Izuku froze. So did the rest of the group. The way this impostor said his name, there was something familiar about it, something that tugged at memories he'd tried to bury. Spider Monkey cackled as he webbed away from Dobby's next attack. Come on, man, after everything we've been through. All those times I had your back when those jerks were picking on you. And you don't even recognize your old pal. Old pal. Izuku's voice came out as barely a whisper, his mind racing through possibilities he didn't want to consider. Before the impostor could say more, the wall suddenly exploded inward as a towering figure burst through. Crust, the shield hero, his distinctive armor gleaming as multiple energy shields materialized around him. Stand back, civilians, Crust commanded as he burst through the debris, his shields already forming. Then he stopped short. Wait, students. Dekiru 10, the number 6 hero rushed toward them, creating protective barriers around the group as burning debris rained down. Field trip, Hyoka offered weakly, earning her a flat look from the pro hero. As the battle raged on around them, Ochako caught a glimpse of movement from the corner of her eye. Toga was quietly backing toward a side exit, waving goodbye to them as they were old friends. Oh my, a real pro hero. Toga whispered to herself with a nervous giggle. Time to make my exit before things get too official. She slipped through a gap in the wall with surprising stealth, disappearing into the shadows just as Crust's attention focused fully on the students and the ongoing battle above. Before anyone could stop her, she darted through a narrow gap in the wall as flames roared past the gap. Crust shook his head in disbelief. This is not the time for jokes, young lady. Izuku stood up, determination clear on his face. We can help you, we just have to take down that guy, Izuku said, his palm already hovering over the Omnitrix. If he could get official permission from a pro hero, then he could transform and help save the day. But Crust firmly shook his head. Absolutely not. I cannot in good conscience allow students to engage in such a dangerous battle, regardless of your unique capabilities. But he's using my forms. Izuku protested. I know how they work better than anyone. That may be true, but... Before Crust could finish, Spider Monkey's form began to shift mid-swing, his body morphing in a sickly sleight without the iconic green flash that made everyone wince. Where the arachnid alien had been, Heatblast now stood on a metal beam. Everyone immediately felt the temperature spike to almost unbearable levels. Finally, something with some real heat. Heatblast cackled maniacally, his voice distorted by the alien vocal cords. Give me that quirk, Crispy. The scarred villain met the attack head-on with his own torrent of blue flames. You want it? Come and take it. The two streams of fire collided in midair, the opposing forces swirling together in a violent spiral. Blue flames twisted around green flames. The flames swirled and churned as if trying to devour each other. For a split second, the flames twisted together into a seething sphere of heat and light. Boom! The explosion erupted outward like a volcanic blast, consuming everything in its path. The shockwave tore through the building's structure, turning concrete and steel into deadly projectiles. Izuku's eyes widened as the blinding flash overwhelmed his vision, the last thing he saw being Heatblast's rocky form lunging toward Dobby through the inferno. Shield formation. Maximum barrier. Crust roared, his shields rapidly expanding into a reinforced dome around the students just as the explosion reached them. The blast hit like a freight train made of pure force and fire. Even protected by Crust's shields, the group felt like they were inside a tin can being kicked down a mountain as the explosion launched the out of the building in a spinning violently across air. Ah! The students screamed as they felt the sickening sensation of weightlessness before crashing through a chain-link fence and rolling and bouncing across the pavement like ball. When they finally came to a stop nearly a block away, the shields dissolved to reveal as everyone panted in exhaustion. Behind them, the entire abandoned building was nothing but a roaring inferno reaching toward the sky. is everyone okay? Momo gasped, struggling to sit up. Define okay. Kyoka groaned, her ears ringing from the explosion. Shoto rubbed his head. That was considerably more destructive than I anticipated. Ochako groaned, slowly pushing herself up from the cracked asphalt. I think I'm gonna be sick. Kyoka sat up, her earphone jacks twitching as she tried to clear the ringing from her ears. Well, that's definitely going on my list of things I never want to experience again. Momo carefully checked her friends for injuries. Is everyone alright? No broken bones. Izuku scrambled to his feet, his eyes immediately drawn to the smoking crater where the building used to stand. Through the flames and billowing smoke, he couldn't make out any movement or signs of life. Come on, they have to still be. He took a step before. Ahem. The entire group froze. Izuku slowly turned around to find Crust standing behind them, arms crossed and giving them the sternest look any of them had ever received from a pro hero. His usually noble expression was somewhere between a disappointed parent and an irritated teacher. All 5 teenagers looked at each other nervously, suddenly feeling very much like the unlicensed students they were. I believe, Crust said with deliberate calm, it would be in everyone's best interest if I escorted all of you directly back to UA. Immediately, Izuku opened his mouth to protest, but the look in Crust's eyes made him think better of it. Yes, sir, they all mumbled in unison. A few hours passed as someone watched from the shadows, his compound eyes fixed particularly on Izuku as the 5 teenagers were escorted into the police car. Still playing the perfect little hero, huh? Stinkfly muttered, his voice dripping with bitter resentment. What a pathetic waste of real power. We should teach him a lesson. He betrayed us, Stinkfly shouted. After everything I did for him. All those times I protected him from those bullies, and this is how he repays me. But then his tone shifted abruptly, becoming almost pleading. No, he's still our friend. He has to be. His head twitched violently to the side. But he left me. He abandoned me when I needed him most. Just like everyone else. My only real friend left me. His voice became small and confused. Right, we're still friends, aren't we, Izuku? No, he abandoned me, left me to rot while he played hero with his shiny new classmates. Who needs that worthless fuck? He can go fuck around with those assholes. Bet his still fucking calls him Kachan. And now he still worships that blonde psychopath who told him to jump off a building. I don't get it, Kevin whispered, his voice becoming more desperate. Bakugo tortured him for years, called him useless, worthless, but I'm the bad guy. I'm the one he runs from. His eyes narrowed dangerously as his mood swung back to rage. He'd rather praise his abuser than stand by the one person who actually gave a damn about him. But then a different memory surfaced, and Stinkfly's expression shifted to something almost gleeful as the sports festival came to mind as he scoffed dismissively. But knowing him, he probably felt guilty about it afterward. But that blonde asshole's face all bloody and swollen, that was nothing but pure cinema. Whoosh! A dark vortex suddenly opened at the side of the building he stood on, revealing glowing yellow eyes in the swirling darkness. Forgive the intrusion, Midoriya, came a calm, polite voice from within the fog. My master wishes to speak with you. You have been quite disruptive to our operations lately. Stinkfly tilted his head in confusion at being mistaken for Izuku, but then a wicked grin spread across his alien features. Kurogiri continued in his measured tone. Destroying our facilities, eliminating our assets, my master finds your boldness both impressive and foolish. The audacity, tisk tisk. He cannot let go such disrespect go unpunished. Stinkfly smiled with anticipation as the dark mist began to envelop the form. He wishes to humble you, to show you what true power looks like when All Might is not there to shield you from consequence. Kurogiri added with polite menace. Come, it is time for your education to begin. To be continued. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Now we will see you in the next video.